Hey, Andrew.
Yes, Stephen?
You know how we romanticize the days of going out to our local video store and sifting through endless amounts of movies, searching for our favorite films, and maybe even finding some hidden gems?
Oh, yes, I know it all too well. That used to be my favorite thing to do. Unfortunately, everything is online now.
Well, what if I told you that there was a place online where you could get some of them same thrills as going to the video store?
Are you talking about Orbit DVD?
I knew you knew what I was talking about. Orbit DVD is located in Asheville, North Carolina, and online with OrbitDVD.com, they bring you everything your physical media heart desires.
Yeah, they have an awesome website that stays up to date with the latest releases from all of your favorite boutique labels as well as studio releases. Not only do they carry American labels such as Criterion Collection, Severin Films, Vinegar Syndrome, and Warner Archive, but they get routine shipments on imports from companies such as 88 Films, Arrow Video, Imprint, and so much more.
And with the option to sell or trade your used copies for cash or store credit, they really bring that video store vibe to you. So go to OrbitDVD.com and stock up on your Blu-rays.
And tell them Chasing Labels sent you.
Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm your host, Stephen Billings, and with me as always is your other host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Stephen, doing good. If you can hear the banging going on right now behind me, that is people not realizing that I am recording at 9 o'clock at night on a Sunday. So if you can hear that, people, that's what that is. Because it is Easter Sunday and
People are
festivities
partying.
have ensued for a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's interesting is every year Easter kind of creeps up on me because I don't really pay attention to it anymore now that I've gotten older, and it feels like like a smaller Thanksgiving. Like
Is that how it is?
you get together with family or whomever, and you eat food, and that's kind of what Thanksgiving is.
It really doesn't go that far with me, at least. I don't think it ever really has. My family's never been that. I mean, I guess my parents would say that they're religious in some way, but we've never taken Easter to the point, I think, of eating meals like you're saying, like a mini Thanksgiving. It's usually just for the kids, get the kids together, let them get some candy. It's like, to me, it's more mini Halloween.
Oh, really? The thing is, I was never a big candy person when I was a kid. I mean, we did Easter egg hunts with the little plastic Easter eggs where people would hide candy or some money in there, and then we as kids would go out and look for them. And then Easter baskets with all that confetti that would get everywhere, that little stringy confetti.
Yeah, that's that annoying shit that gets everywhere. Yeah,
Stuff gets everywhere.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's part of what I do miss getting older, is that part of it. But the religious aspect of it has gone away from me significantly, but it still holds a lot for a lot of people, especially up here. When you get to New England is like old world type of, like, not religion, but especially Christianity is pretty ingrained up here. I mean,
Yeah.
if anybody watches the movie Spotlight and you realize that the chokehold that Christianity has on the culture up here, it was very accurate, very accurate.
Yeah.
But something that's kind of anti-Christian, literally, is the movie Renfield, which is coming out very, very soon.
Wow.
The reason why I'm making the transition is because we did do an interview with the director of Renfield, Chris McKay, and we did it well before the movie came out, and the movie's finally here.
Yeah, finally here. We're here on the week of, and the week leading up to the release, and we're very excited. Of course, I'm a big Nicolas Cage fan, so I had to ask him about working with Nicolas Cage. Of course, I love Nicholas Hoult as well. Nicholas Hoult is I think a really fantastic and unique actor who keeps choosing really interesting projects. And of course, we were interviewing Chris, and we got a chance to talk to him about his career and his love of film, and he himself knows he's aware of the physical media community. He knows about the shout factories and he's aware. So he's I think
Right.
got a little bit of a collection of himself. And
Yeah,
he was
we got
also
to we got to talk about his like his love for movies, his career really, and realized like how ingrained he's been in a lot of stuff that we are well aware of. Robot Chicken, um, the Lego movie which he edited, the Lego Batman movie which he directed. We got into talk a little bit about his take on Batman and his interpretation of Batman, all that cool stuff.
yeah, and so here, and this was important to him to make sure I said this here on Spy Number 94 of Chasing Labels. Here's our interview with director Chris McKay. So, guys, joining us this week, it is our great honor, our great pleasure to have director, editor, producer, animator. He does a lot of things, and that's Chris McKay. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic! Thanks for asking. We're very excited to have you on. Of course, this coming week, you'll be having a film I'm really excited to see, and that is Renfield, starring Nicholas Hoult, Nicolas Cage. Uh, I'm not shy about it on the show. I'm a huge Nicolas Cage fan,
Oh,
so
nice.
we're gonna get into it because I got to ask you about working with Nicolas Cage. But in general, how you doing? How you doing? How's everything going?
Good. Good. Did you guys already do the spine number and everything for this episode? I was
Oh,
excited. I was excited to know what the spine number
I don't
is.
even know what the spy number is going to be yet. I think it's it's definitely not like 93 or 94. But we'll do like a separate introduction, pre-recorded when we get closer to the time it
Got
releases.
it.
But yeah,
Got
it's like
Right.
spy
Probably
number 94, I think.
Steven does all of that technical scheduling, lining up everything. Because I guess his mind's better suited towards that. So when that comes around, obviously closer to when Renfield comes out, which is very, very soon. So it's probably crunch time for you
I
and
was
for
trying to act.
everything
I was
going
trying
on
to
with
act
it.
like this was the week of. Now you just
Oh,
ruined the
okay.
whole illusion.
Yeah.
Just
It's
no,
fine.
no, it's okay.
It's
You
no,
guys ruined
any
the illusion, but
I'm
it's
so
okay. No,
yeah,
no.
okay.
It's okay.
That's how
I got
movies
excited.
are.
I got excited about.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm glad that you're literally showing right now that you listen to the podcast by referencing something that we do. So that's a big compliment by itself.
Yeah.
But so yeah, in general, how's everything going?
Good. Good. I mean, we just literally just finished the movie. I made the final decisions for DI, QC'd the 5.1 and the Atmos. And yeah, finally got to see it off, which was really great because I got to see it got to see it at the Hitchcock Theater
Yeah.
over at Universal, so that was really awesome. And yeah, so I'm really excited. I can't wait for people to actually be able to see it and hear it and hear all see all the work everybody did on the movie.
Well, I know you're a big Hitchcock fan, so I know that's important to you. I know
Yeah,
that's something that was a big influence for you early on,
yeah,
and of course, from what I read, the filming ended literally the day that it's going to release this year,
yeah,
like a year later.
yeah,
So all that work a year later, finally getting done.
yeah,
It's exciting, man. And with Renfield, it's Universal's been trying to kind of relaunch that kind of monsters universe a little bit. And we had that Lin Wendell Invisible Man that was really great. And
yeah.
now this is kind of in line with that. And I'm just excited to see a new take. I'm always excited to see it because Dracula is a character that has been reinvented a bunch of times. But now we're not only focusing on that, but we're focusing on his assistant
Yeah.
Renfield, who is always kind of in many iterations is shafted. He's always put down. And I can't wait to see a comedic version of that really played up, and also of course action oriented as well. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Kirkman had a really good pitch for what the movie, for having sort of like a cockeyed point of view of a Dracula movie,
yeah,
seeing, going through the eyes of seeing the world of Dracula through the eyes of his lackey, his henchman, and Renfield's always such a fun, the Dwight Fry in particular interpretation of Renfield, although there's the Tom Waits version, and then there's the Dracula Dead and Loving It version, which are all really fun. But I always like the Dwight Fry Todd Browning movie, version of Renfield. That was such a fun, interesting performance. and has some very iconic imagery attached to it. You know, him in the hold of the Demeter, and the looking up at the camera with the laugh,
Yeah.
and him crawling towards the maid that collapses. Stuff like that was really, and obviously the bug eating and all that stuff. So to be able to, like, and I'm very thankful for, to Universal for, like you said, taking a swing at something like this, because obviously, like, an R-rated, horror comedy action, it's not exactly one tone, is not something that, if you sort of look at what the swings that they've done in the past, whether it's The Mummy or Dracula Untold or something like that, where they're taking sort of like a big blockbuster, mass audience uh, swing at this, and again, to echo what you just said, Dracula's a character that has, it's Sherlock Holmes, Hamlet,
Yeah.
like characters that there's a million different versions of that, and that you've seen a lot of the same kind of thing, and to allow us to do something that is more offbeat, that takes this point of view where Dracula is not necessarily the main character, but the villain. He's the bad boss to Renfield. It's boss from hell.
Yeah.
To be able to allow us to do that, to be unconventional in the way that we made this movie. It's really, really lucky that they were, I mean, they definitely put budget handcuffs on us in order to be able to do it. We certainly didn't have the budget of The Mummy or Dracula Untold, but they allowed us to make kind of a weird movie. And Kirkman's pitch was really solid, and Ryan's script was really great. And when I read it, I immediately thought of Holt, who's somebody I really liked, and I met him a few years ago, when I was sort of like talking about doing Nightwing and stuff like that. So he was one of the actors that I met with, and I always really liked him, and I love the movies that he does and the choices that he makes. Doing like Warm Bodies, a completely
Oh
nonverbal
yeah. Yeah.
performance. To do Fury Road and be this kind of insane desert character. Witness Me. Like that to me was the fact that he's unafraid to do that stuff, and yet at the same time he's got all the charm of Hugh Grant. He's incredibly vulnerable, great actor, incredibly charming, funny, and things like The Great and stuff like that. So I felt really lucky that he was available, because honestly I don't know who else could do the Ren. I don't know if we could do the movie of Renfield without Nick Holt, or Nick Cage for that matter either.
Well, yeah, I can't agree more. I thought the castings were spot on, and yeah, it's another interpretation. I just bring it up right because you were bringing up interpretations of Dracula. One that we've talked about on here not too long ago is the Udo Kier Blood of Dracula. I was like, dude, that relationship between the Renfield
Yeah,
and Dracula is an amazing one too. That kind
yeah,
of feel like I would love to see some of that infused in this as well, because that's a
yeah,
more rated R and kind of out there, that I feel like Nicolas Cage would maybe even have watched that film and thought, you know what, I need to tune into some Udo Kier here.
yeah. Well, he calls himself the California Kinski. Cage does.
Speak.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of like his. I don't know if he. I don't know if. I think that he, credits, sort of gave himself that moniker, but uh, I wouldn't be surprised if he had seen the Udo Kier version of that. He's quite a cinephile, just a really deep knowledge of movies and performances,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah,
really.
we're gonna talk more Nicolas Cage. I got to talk to you because I'm a big fan. But Andrew, as usual, we love. I know we're talking about Renfield right now, but we want to talk more Chris McKay and get people a little bit of background on your beginnings, and of course, you told us you're also into physical media as well. So I think our audience would really like to know some of that information as well. So
Right.
yeah, Chris, where did it all begin for you? Where did that love of film bloom for you?
Yeah, I my parents, my mom and my dad. My mom was a big movie lover and would talk about She was the first person to probably mention Alfred Hitchcock. Those were movies that she liked as a kid, and had movie experiences going to see Psycho, and other things like that in the movie theater. And so that was something that she talked about a lot. And and she and I went to go see movies together, especially when I was really young. Seeing movies like Bambi, and that kind of thing, the Disney stuff. Uh, I think when I was really young, I got to see like Rocky in a movie theater with her, and I vaguely remember it. But that was something that she always dragged me to go see stuff with her. And then my dad was, in typical sort of dad the dad movie trope, where it's like James Bond movies and Guns of Navarone and things like that. And but uh, he was also a guy who collected a lot of movie soundtracks.
Mm.
So, and not that he's like a big, like, it's not like he was a computer science guy. So he wasn't necessarily like a guy who like was in the arts or anything like that, but just he loved James Bond movies, and he loved movies, all of that kind of like, thriller mystery stuff that was kind of coming out in those days. And so he bought all of the record soundtracks of those movies. So in our house we had all those things. And so I would, so these movies that I couldn't see when I was young, I got to look at the album covers and the jackets and the artwork and stuff like that. And I think that was something, that really inspired me, and made me, because again, as a kid, you see these things that your parents or older, cousins or people, people like that are watching, listening to the posters on their walls, stuff like that. And you want to go, you're curious about that stuff, and you want to go see that stuff and experience it. And so I got to kind of see some of that stuff through the media that they had around the house, and kind of get excited about that. And I started working in a movie theater when I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I grew up in Libertyville, Illinois, and I got to I was a projectionist and ultimately like the manager of the movie theater. And so I got to run the platter system and splice the reels together. And
I did it too. I did the
I was
same
just gonna
thing.
say,
Yeah.
Steven, that was
You're telling my
something you
story
did.
here, man. I lived in North Carolina. I live in North
S-
Carolina. That's the only difference.
So many people have that similar story where they worked in a movie theater, whether it be concessions, ticket takers,
Videos or
ushers,
a video store.
or
Yeah.
video store or something like that. It was something early on, in something in the movie world, or adjacent to. Even to this day, a lot of the young employees I see at the movie theaters are younger, teenagers, really.
yeah,
Essentially,
So
yeah.
that's why I don't get mad at them when when they screw up things. They're kids, you know. It's not yell at them because they can't fill out popcorn faster, you know. It's
Stephen, were you in what in North Carolina? What town were you in? With the movie when you
Uh,
were in the movie
a
theater?
small little town between more well-known towns. It's called Kernersville, North Carolina.
Yeah,
It's like between Greensboro and Winston-Salem.
yeah,
Yeah, and so like I get our major cities are like Charlotte and Raleigh, and they're like about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from there. So
yeah,
we're like kind of in the middle of the state.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was at the same distance when I grew up in Libertyville. That's it's basically like 45 minutes from Chicago. We're
Mm,
like we're
yeah,
like we're kind of like between Chicago and Milwaukee.
yeah.
And so when I was a kid and working at the movie theater, I would sometimes drive into Chicago and go see movies. Chicago had at that time, they had kind of a Times Square area where they had, what would sort, in New York would have been called a grindhouse movie theater, but we're just sort of like, you could see Return of the Living Dead or
Yeah.
something like that, and everyone, in the audience is probably smoking pot and that kind of thing. And but they, I was, as soon as I had access to a car, I drove to the city to go see any, because you'd see these, there'd be these movie theaters like the Three Penny and Music Box and stuff like that, and that had were playing foreign movies and David Lynch movies and Toxic Avenger and things like that. Stuff that's a little more off the beaten path, stuff that you wouldn't get in the neighborhood theater like that I worked at, or what was the mall theater that you could go to and see, Ghostbusters or whatever was out at the time, Raiders and all that kind of thing. Very very early on, I was like obsessed with movies. I would go to the library all the time and try to read about movies and movie history and look up, you sort of look up the filmmakers of the movies. If you look up at Lucas or Spielberg or something like that, which will lead you to Scorsese or Coppola or Friedkin, or you start to find these, these other filmmakers, and eventually lead to Akira Kurosawa and all that kind of thing. And so I would try to see anything that I could possibly get my hands on. And fortunately, at the high school that I went to, there was I was a terrible student in most classes, but I was an honors English student, and I think because I was in honors English, I was able to take a couple of classes. One being a film class where I got to see where the teacher programmed like The Searchers and Dirty Harry and Notorious, the Hitchcock movie, and things like that. So I got to see and Seven Samurai and things like that. So I was really fortunate that they had a teacher that cared about movies.
Yeah.
In my high school, and we also had a science fiction class where the teacher we read a lot of science fiction. Ray Bradbury, who was from a suburb not too far away from where I grew up. We read a lot of Ray Bradbury stuff, and he also played, Andromeda Strain and things like that in the class. So I got to see a lot of stuff very early on. So not only was I absorbing the stuff that was, part of the popular culture at the time, but I got to see, things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to see readily. Before this is sort of like, we didn't get like cable and VCRs until later. So this was my way. It was either the library or whatever came on on television, or these opportunities to go see stuff at the off the beaten path movie theater and that kind of thing.
Yeah, one thing that's missing about, I think the access, as great as the access to all this, film and things that we have these days can be, that kind of like it being a little harder to get to things, I think also created the like harder passions for film.
Yeah.
And also, just it sucks that it doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, this is the arts in general, but like in schools that we're not seeing a lot of, at least schools around where I grew up, not a lot of film appreciation or any kind of film programs that are like just basic to get you to appreciate all different types of films, or even just learn some rudimentary camera stuff, and like I just wish there was a little bit more brought to that in schools, because we found out during the pandemic that people need the arts, people need that to help with their mental health. Like they need a way to connect, not just, because they couldn't connect with the people around them, connecting with forms of entertainment was another way of doing that. And I think that we underappreciate that because we get so much of it around us all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned like, how it used to be kind of hard to see things, and that was part of the adventure, going out. It's funny because now that I can't remember the last time I had to wait in line to go see something, that was sold out. Right.
I thought the same thing the other day, because when I used to work at the movie theater, there used to be this anticipation. There used to be a line outside the movie theater, and it was always exciting. And I used to do like midnight shows, early shows. Things were always really exciting, and now that's gone.
I remember a lot of that, especially late 90s. I remember specifically waiting in line to see Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. Because there were so many, and it's not like they weren't playing it on every single screen. It's just like everything was always sold out. So you had to get in line. I remember being like early in line and being, oh, it's not so bad. But then closer to the movie time, the line would get longer and longer and longer. Then everybody's, because we didn't have, this was, for those of you listening, we didn't have reserved seating back then. You couldn't pick where you wanted to sit. So basically, there was just a mad rush of
Yeah.
people pushing into the theater
Yeah.
to grab the best seats they can, or any seat they can.
It's part of the
Because I don't know if
experience.
they cared about capacity back then.
Yeah, it's part of
But
but it's part of the experience. That's what,
yeah,
even though we get some great convenience, but I think convenience can kill the excitement of something too. Like
yeah,
it loses that tangibility of the moment that you're waiting. You're sitting there waiting in line, and you're like thinking about what might happen. You're building it up, and I know anticipation can also be a bad thing, especially with all the trailers that come out for things, and like
no, yeah.
but
Depending on what
I do
theater.
think it's healthy to get excited and kind of dream up something in your mind, because
Yeah.
it sparks the creativity. It sparks, and we've lost that,
Also, you
it's
feel
a
the
little bit.
energy when you're in a
Yeah.
group of like-minded people who are all in a place for a specific reason,
Yeah.
specifically entertainment, whether it be a live sporting event, whether it be, to see a movie or a concert or something like that. That energy, you can't really replicate that anyplace else.
The,
Like, you
the,
can't
the,
replicate it at home
the,
unless you've got, a
yeah.
very large place with
Yeah.
The
hundreds of
closest we get to
people.
that is film festivals. Like film festivals are about,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, and especially like film festivals that have like a targeted mission. It's one thing to go
yeah,
to like Sundance or something like that, but if it's like Beyond Fest, or if it's like some that sort of thing, it does occur to me that like at the New Beverly here in Los Angeles, that in general there is a line outside the New Beverly when there's which is the theater that Quentin Tarantino
yeah,
bought and programs stuff. So there is sometimes a line there. So there I guess there are moments you can sort of create that. But yeah, and I also miss sort of like I remember seeing Sunshine, the Danny Boyle movie,
mm,
at a theater out in Pasadena. I think I went saw it at the little theater there, and there was afterwards. Uh, I remember like there was a bunch of people just standing around talking about the movie, just standing out in front of the theater, just uh, just talking about the film, and sort of like debating the ending and the all of the stuff. And and these were all strangers, like people that didn't know each other. And that's kind of a night. There's something about that I really, I really like and hunger for and miss sometimes when you that kind of communal experience with a movie.
yeah. I've done that many a times, even at like concerts. Like, there was
Mhm.
one time I went to a concert, and then as we left, it was started to pour, and we walked to the venue, so we had to walk like at least a couple miles to get back to the apartment we were staying at, and it was just pouring down rain, and we were like, and we waited outside. We wanted to see if we could meet the band, and we just waited out in the rain, and that's part of the experience. Like it sucked kind of, but
Yeah.
like it was like it's like, you know what, this is worth it. We met the band. They were all, they were great. And then after the excitement, we ran back for a mile, like to get back to the apartment drenched. But
Mm.
it's just
North
part of it.
Carolina's got a good music scene, like a good local music scene. There's a lot of good bands from that area.
Yeah. Well, we have Asheville. Asheville, North Carolina is a great music town. That's where we saw that band, and I mean, I used to be in a band. I used to play music. I used to do the thing. This area I'm in, it's not great. I mean,
Mhm.
it's got a good arts area, but it's the music scene is not necessarily strong when it comes to original music. It's maybe strong in cover bands,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's that whole adding the experience upon not just seeing the movie, but the intangibles around it.
yeah,
Whether you're with your friends or your family, or you're just by yourself and you meet new people, is something that I think, you know, I just wish could come back to life just a little bit. Like,
yeah,
Understandably so. I
yeah,
mean, the commute. I mean, that was the one thing people worried about during lockdown, during things like that. Just the loss of communal arts. There was a fear of the movie theater experience kind of going away because of just not having access to it and all of that stuff. But I think it's come back relatively so now. It's forever changed.
yeah,
It's not as as fervent or as you know as big a thing as it was before. Granted, we're still in the early
It's
stages of coming
yeah,
back to it, but there's really nothing quite like it. Also, I mean, like you're saying now, Stephen, the stories that you get out of it and the memories that you make
Mm.
are can be rather captivating
it,
in both positive and I guess negative ways. I've seen people get in near fights inside of the movie theater
yeah. Oh
before the
yeah.
movie even starts.
Uh,
You know,
Chris, we
just
both
fighting
worked at
over
movie
nothing.
theaters. There are great stories we could probably tell about crazy stuff that's happened.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've had guys I've had a drunk guy somehow make his way up to the projection room, come back down, and
Whoa.
then and pass me, and then pee in the trash can and say, "I'm done," and he walked out. Like, stuff like that, like, I'm like, "Where did that guy come from?" But I guess he left, so it's okay now. But, yeah, just I mean, just there's so many great things that can happen with that, but I do wanna get back to you, Chris. I do wanna talk, your begin I know, your love of film now getting into that whole where did that switch happen to where it wasn't just about the love, but getting interested in the filmmaking aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people, I was, I had my parents had a Super 8 movie camera that they would take on vacations, and so I started to use that uh, to make little, science fiction and horror films. Um, because I was just like I was obsessed with movies and reading Fangoria magazine and stuff like that, and just wanting to make my own stuff. And then uh, transition to I think mini DV and that kind of thing. Once that came around, and that's really when I was able to. I did my first. Uh, I edited a lot of movies for other people, like a lot of local filmmakers in Chicago, and then tried my hand at making a feature, which I got into some film festivals, and then kind of from there, and then I'd always like all my jobs post college were all in the film business in some way. When I first got out of college, I worked at a healthcare company in the video division, and I would shoot surgeries and
Wow.
training tapes made training tapes for doctors and nurses and stuff like that, about how to do certain processes for like continuing education credits for doctors and nurses, and so I did that sort of thing, and then when that company closed their video services division, I I took out a loan. I was like 24, 25 years old. I took out a loan with a friend of mine, bought some of the equipment, and started a production and post production company in Chicago that just did a lot of corporate stuff during the day, but then would kind of partner with local filmmakers, and so that we could edit their movies kind of off hours and that kind of thing, and was able to do a couple of really neat work with a couple of really interesting filmmakers, a couple of local people. This guy named Jim Sikora in Chicago who made a couple of really interesting movies. One of them with like David Yao from the Jesus Lizard,
Yeah.
and some local actors, and another guy named Mike Gillio, who made a movie called Quick Stop, which played a lot of festivals. And Mike's now a screenwriter in Los Angeles, and I actually hired Mike and I worked together on the story for the Dungeons and Dragons movie
Oh, wow.
that's about to come out. I was originally going to direct that before I took the Tomorrow War job, so he and I worked together on that. And then I don't know if you guys know the video company Something Weird
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Video, but they were producing movies, and so we worked on worked on editing a John Michael McCarthy movie, um, uh, which was a lot of fun. So get to work with these other filmmakers, and then kind of like pay for the stuff by doing all these corporate things. It was a very George Romero esque life that we had. We were doing corporate videos during the day to pay for our weird movies, or doing movies for friends and stuff like that, editing movies for friends at night, and then eventually made my own movie, and then sort of did the film festival route with that, and then um, from there, basically got the job working on Robot Chicken, and started editing on Robot Chicken. For the first season, I guess they had lost their editor, and they were just about to start production on the first season of Robot Chicken. It wasn't even called Robot Chicken at the time; it was the Untitled Seth Green show or something. And I, went up for the job, and they hired me, and I moved from Chicago to Los Angeles, and they gave me 3 weeks to prove myself. And pretty much, I think within a year, I went from being the editor to a director and editor and producer of the show. And Matt Seth and also Dino Stamatopoulos, who was doing Moral Oral, because half the year we were doing Robot Chicken, and the other half of the year we were doing Moral Oral. And so I got to. They were both very generous show creators, and they let me kind of be a part of the directing team and the producing team and stuff like that. And so those are the great learning experience working for both of those shows, and working for Adult Swim, which was a lot of fun. And they gave, obviously, those guys a lot of freedom to create really interesting shows. And we did that. We did Robot Chicken, we did Moral Oral, and we did Titan Maximum, which was a show that Matt and Seth and Tom Root, who was one of the writers on Robot Chicken, did. And it's a sort of it's a stop motion show, but sort of done like a Voltron giant robot kind of show, sort of a parody of a Voltron kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know you were primarily doing a lot of editing and stuff like that early on, and so yeah, when you started doing this animation, and started getting into the directing of that, kind of tell people, because obviously you went on to do the Lego, working on the Lego movie, and then directed the Lego Batman movie, and then did the Tomorrow War, which was a live action film.
Right.
So going from that animation directing to a live act, tell people,
Yeah.
do you feel like there's a big difference there, or like tell what's the
Yeah.
process of directing an animated movie versus directing a live action film?
Yeah, I think that because I had, when I came to Robot Chicken, I knew a little bit about animation, and I'd done some very rudimentary stop motion stuff that I would be embarrassed to show anybody if I could even find it. I certainly wouldn't show it to any of the animators at Robot Chicken, because they would lose their minds. But but I'd done some of that stuff on my own, but had a very sort of very surface level understanding of stop motion. And But what I did understand was storytelling. As an editor and a guy who had produced, and directed other things, live action things, I understood how to get things done on a low budget, and I understood how to massage the schedule and work the schedule, because we had uh, we had 13 stages had 15 stages and 13 animators, and you had to coordinate it when the puppets, which is one department, and the sets, which is another department, and when the animators were available and when the lighting team was available, and you had to coordinate all this stuff. And because I had done the good news for me at the time is that stop motion was not was a was part animation, but also part live action, in the sense that you had to build or find every single thing that you're going to put in front of the camera, and you were dealing with a physical camera and lenses and things like that, which is all stuff that I understood, and so I could be very helpful in that, and have had an eye for how to get more out of our sets, more out of our puppets, and again, more out of the schedule. We were sort of doing like one episode at a time when I first came on, and then I started to say, hey, let's try to do 4 episodes at a time. Let's try to amortize the stages and things like that. So I brought a real practical, low budget, the kind of thing that I was doing when I was doing music videos, the kind of thing I was doing low end, commercials and things like that, and independent films. Trying to figure out how we could get the most out of everything we were doing. So that's sort of what I brought. So what I lacked in maybe in some of the stop motion fundamentals, I understood from a practical how to get a job done thing, and also just from some storytelling stuff. Although Robot Chicken is obviously sketch comedy, so there's not a lot of storytelling. But I understood how it's like how to get how to get the most out of a set or series of sets based on what sketches were coming up and that kind of thing. Or for Moral Oral, what we were shooting out certain sets and things like that, and you doing multiple episodes at a time. So that was, and the fortunate that the animators and the team there was kind enough to let me come into their world and help me understand the things I didn't know off the top of my head. Didn't have the experience with. So so from there, because there was this live action side that I had already done, I learned about animation from working season after season on Robot Chicken, and then I was able to take that experience and go into Lego, which was obviously CG, computer generated animation, but it was meant to be. The reason Chris and Phil hired me was because that they wanted it to feel and look like stop motion. So they wanted to go by stop motion principles. So, and we had done sketches with Lego, and we, when the animators were trying to get the minifigs to do certain things, like if you wanted somebody to reach across their body or something like that, the minifigs are you can only be articulated with they only had certain joints that they can move. So the animators would pop off, and if they wanted the arm to go across the body, they'd pop off the arm, shave down the side of the thing, and then stick it on, with some sticky wax and stick it on here so it could feel like it was grabbing something. And so using those principles, I was, my first job when Chris and Phil hired me, they had lost the green light to the first Lego movie, and not they had not, but not by the way, to be clear, not something that they had done on their own. This, sometimes studios go through these things where they get excited about a project and they get cold feet. And Don, Chris and Phil were about to do 21 Jump Street at the time, so they were about to go to New Orleans and shoot. So they needed a third director to come on. So they hired me. Basically, what my job was to try to get the studio to get back excited about this movie and get the green light back, and to show them. Studio had this opinion that the minifigs design should be more anatomical. So they didn't want to use the Lego design. They wanted to add depth to the mouth and gums and all this stuff, because they thought that they thought that the characters couldn't audience wouldn't be able to emotionally connect to the characters. So the first thing I did was to have Emmett do an audition for the movie. So I worked with the team, and this is where we started to show how the stop motion principles could work and all that kind of thing. And so we were able to so basically we did a black box theater thing where Emmett comes on and auditions for his role in the movie. And there's some directors off camera who are saying, okay, say the line. Okay, now say it funnier, say it louder, say it quieter, cry, do this. And so Emmett would go through all of this stuff. And that was the way we won the studio over for that they could see, oh yeah, you can get all the emotion you want out of it. We're able to do, because we were doing these things that I had learned from the animators in stop motion, how to get the minifig to actually feel more like he was doing more traditionally what they were worried that this kind of Rankin Bass kind of thing that maybe was going to happen, that this jerky stop motion was just going to look cheap and look bad, and so we're going to show them, no, it's going to look really modern and fun and cool, and you get a lot of expressive stuff out of the face, even the simple designs and stuff like that. So I was able to kind of help get that going. And then also do an animatic that sort of showed how kind of fun the movie could be, how action packed the movie could be, that it wouldn't just be a hand holder movie. There'd be a movie for kids and adults, and it would show a love for Lego, a real obsessive love for Lego, and the physicalness of Lego. That's why we had all the chips and chunks and fingerprints and flaws in there, is because we wanted to show this is what these things feel like. We did a lot of tests on what baking Lego minifigs in the sun to sort of show what sun damage would do to Lego minifigs over time.
Yeah.
So all of that experience, when I went to go do a live action movie, to go to Tomorrow War after that, I had a lot of experience working now with computer graphics and understanding that. So I understood how to what we could sort of get, being able to work with animators, whether it was stop motion, whether it was in CG, we're able to sort of understand what you can get out of animated alien creatures and that sort of thing. And when you're doing stop motion, when you're doing the Lego Movie or Lego Batman, or any of that stuff, you are anything in animation, you are working in story. You're doing storytelling in slow motion, and I think any
Yeah.
filmmaker, any live action filmmaker, should at some point try to do an animated movie, because it really forces you to pay attention to exactly what you need to get into the movie. What like every you because you're literally making every single thing in the scene come to life. You're breathing life into it, and you are trying to jam pack that frame with as much information as possible, because animated movies are so expensive. They oftentimes are no longer than 90 minutes or so,
Mm.
because every minute is $1 million. So you want to jam pack it with as much information as humanly possible to get as much out of your story. And that was a great lesson on trying to just see how much you could get. So when I went to do Tomorrow War or Renfield, um, that really helped me kind of like be able to understand like how just how much we could get out of a frame, how much we could get out of get out of a scene we were working on.
Yeah, yeah. Animation's a medium to tell stories. It's also not only just like you said, you're breaking down a story and you're slowing it down and you're really having to pay attention to the details, but also just the style
Mm.
in which the animation can be is something that's ever can be a new discovery, because just like the Lego movie, I also think about the newest Into the Spider-Verse film
Yeah,
that had great animation, that it was very different and kind of a fresh animation style that really took people by storm,
yeah,
and that's stuff that can continue to happen with that medium, that people can keep getting more and more creative and use
Yeah.
different ways to make that, because with real life you can only go so far before your people were you
People
know
notice.
yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely still things in live action we can still experiment with, people still do, but like with animation, you're literally creating everything, and you're literally manipulating as much as you want and going as far as you want, so
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's interesting because that idea you just said, Stephen, goes hand in hand with the concept of Legos. I think the idea of Legos, create anything you want, or you can have, use your imagination to literally building blocks of something. And when you're combining like different properties with different properties, it almost feels like you open yourself up to new possibilities, specifically with Batman,
mm,
taking the comic book world and the Lego world and combining it into one. It's such a unique twist on it all, really. Now, when it came to doing Lego Batman, were you familiar with, the Batman world and all that kind of stuff in the comic book world? And did that influence, you in the way you wanted to approach how this movie was constructed?
yeah. I was really lucky to get the Lego Batman movie, because I originally I was they had sort of asked me to direct the Lego sequel. And Chris and Phil, I think, we're going to do Lego Batman in the very like initial conversation. Um, and I was kind of, but I was because I was sort of working with them on both. I obviously worked with them closely on the Lego movie, and then as we were developing the Lego sequel and Lego Batman, I was basically going back and forth between both meetings, so I could be across all of the movies, in case they were going to, go off and do something else. And Lego 2 as a story wasn't quite where it needed to be, whereas Lego Batman, we had really kind of latched into what we wanted to do with it, and we had sort of developed some fairly profound, or it made profound inroads into what the film was ultimately going to be. So at that point, we went to talk to the studios. We were literally sort of pitching where we were at with both movies, and they basically said, "Well, Lego 2 is not ready to go. Lego Batman is ready to go. Uh, we feel more confident sort of greenlighting Lego Batman, but Chris and Phil now, I think maybe Solo might have come along at that point, or something else had made it so that Chris and Phil weren't necessarily going to be able to direct Lego Batman. And so basically in the room, Warner Brothers said, well, great. Well, we're going to, would you mind directing this movie instead of Lego too? And I mean, I'm a huge comic book fan. I mean, I grew up, Batman has been something that's been a part of my life, whether it's the 1966 version or, I feel, like the Super Friends, or Batman showing up on Scooby Doo. The Frank Miller Dark Knight, books came out at the exact right time for me to sort of, age up in what I was doing, what I was reading as far as comic books go. And then the Burton movie came out, shortly after that, and the, Batman Returns came out a couple years after that. So my so I was at a deep love and knowledge of Batman, and so when I got that chance, I jumped at it, and what I wanted to do was basically say, okay, well, our Batman is all of the Batman. It's George Clooney, and it's Adam West, and it's Christian Bale, and it's everything, and it's
Yeah.
Ben Affleck, and they've all those experiences happened to this one guy, and he's that felt like the most fun and the most Lego way of doing the movie, and the way you could sort of get. I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be a Batman movie where Batman tries to solve the problem, right? The problem of his loneliness and why he, there's no upside to a studio attacking that, because it's like if Batman fixes his problem, then there's no more movies. So we actually had, because we were doing it Lego and animated and stuff like that, we actually had uh, we actually had the opportunity to be able to go, okay, we should attack Batman's loneliness, and the reasons why he's the way he is, and that kind of thing. And that would seem like the most fun way of doing it, because you could definitely like double down on the rock and roll Batman in the beginning of the movie, and then also get the emotional side of it, with his relationship with Robin and Barbara Gordon and stuff like that.
Yeah, as a big Batman fan myself, just staring off at my Batman comic book collection off screen, it, it's a movie where it feels like you got away with everything you could possibly do with Batman. Like it's a cross section of like you just said, like every version of Batman. I think not only from the movie world, the television world, but the comic book world as well.
Yeah,
Going through his existentialism and approaching it from both a comedic and serious way,
yeah,
and satirical as well. And it felt like just the medium itself, the animation world, kind of gave you license to do that.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if it was the studio being like, "Oh yes, it's animation, so we can tell this version of Batman." Being every version of Batman, because like you just said, I don't know if we would ever get this version of Batman in a live action form, being able to be like every single thing and self-referential and literally reference back to every single version of Batman
I,
that we know in
I don't know.
pop culture.
I don't know. We should ask Will Arnett if he wants to do the live action Batman
Batman. And
version.
the thing is, the genius of it as well is that just kind of delivering this Batman to the audience, you already had done in the Lego movie.
mm-hmm.
So they had already been familiar with
Yeah,
this version. And now you're just expanding that even further out and digging deeper into him
yeah,
and expanding his world. And it just must have been fun as heck for you and for, maybe other people who are Batman enthusiasts. I know definitely me watching just all of the references, all the homages, like the
God,
whole
it's
opening sequence
amazing.
has like his entire rogues gallery, the most well known
Condiment King.
Condiment King and like Eggman and just like everybody was in there, and it's like I never thought I would see Condiment King in a Batman movie, let alone this type of version. And it's like, yes, there was a Condiment King in the comic books at one point. Just like that's how ridiculous it was. But just like that movie is so unique, and some consider it one of the best Batman
It
movies
it is.
ever, because in a way it is, because it is so encompassing of everything that makes Batman Batman, his dark and brooding, his loneliness, his existential stuff, but also pokes fun at some of the more ridiculous things.
yeah.
Um, just an incredibly brilliant, kind of insightful thing on that version of Batman. And we get so many different versions of him, and just amongst all of them, this one is kind of the most unique approach.
Yeah,
It was always a question I had whether if you had taken that directly, personally.
yeah. Well, I was, like I I there's few movies, right? Because I think the thing I love the Tim Burton movies, and and the Joel Schumacher movies are fun, pop culture curiosities. But there's no Nolan made a movie about Batman. The only knock I would say in the Tim Burton movies is those movies aren't necessarily about Batman. They're about Joker. They're about Penguin and Catwoman, which are great, and that's awesome. And the subsequent movies are about Two Face and Riddler and Poison Ivy and Bane and everybody else that shows up. Mr. Freeze, and because again, Mr. Freeze has the best. Whatever we say about the ice puns or all that stuff, that Mr. Freeze has the best arc in those Schumacher movies. It's because you care about his tragic situation with his wife, and so those movies are about the villains and they're about that. Batman doesn't necessarily as a he doesn't change in those movies. He just sort of exists in those movies. Whereas Nolan made a movie about Batman and Bruce Wayne,
Yeah.
and Mask of the Phantasm is about Batman and Bruce Wayne. Um, and that's why I probably like those movies. I probably like those ones the most ultimately. You know, because they are focused on his character and they take that character seriously, or serious enough. I mean, one thing I appreciate about what Nolan did is he did add levity to his relationship with Alfred, Christian Bale and Michael Caine, and Lucian and Morgan Freeman as Fox, like that. There's levity in there, and I always liked that he made the movies they're not serious. It's not some grim, dark, serious thing, but there's moments of levity, and that's appreciated.
I
Yeah.
would say even, Batman the Animated Series is legendary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something I grew up with, I'm pretty sure many people have, and it took that character incredibly serious, but delivered it to a younger audience
Yeah.
in a more serious way. I mean, you just mentioned the Mr. Freeze episode of that series is incredibly
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah.
It gives you everything you need to know about the character of Mr. Freeze and makes that character more three-dimensional, makes him more sympathetic, dealing with trauma and then that I think that kind of also leads down the road of, exploring the villains like we see in a lot of movies now and TV shows, giving them a backstory, giving them, reasons why the way they are, getting into the psyche of it all and whatnot. And in Lego Batman, it gets into the psyche of the Joker and the Batman relationship, which is so unique
Yeah.
in pop culture and so unique in the comic books as well, where one can't really exist without the other in many ways. They're kind of same sides of different sides of the same coin, I should
Yeah.
say. And that's explored so much in and of that. And also, one of the more unique things in kind of the Lego Batman movie is what happens when Gotham has no crime left.
Yeah.
Like, what happens to Batman? His entire identity is that, going after that, seeking something that's never ending, like a problem that has no solution,
Yeah.
but he just keeps doing it. And what happens when that problem goes away? And exploring that is
Yeah.
something I don't think we see a lot.
No,
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, this the idea that Batman, we got to sort of attack Batman a little bit for kind of being shitty at his job, where he's a guy who's like, wait a minute, so he's been doing this in Gotham City for how long, and Gotham City's never gets better, and in fact it only seems to get worse. I mean, again, if you were to take from 1939, every comic book storyline, put them one after the other and play that as though that's real. I mean, at a certain point, Gotham City gets blown up by a nuclear weapon by I can't even I can't remember what story that's off the top of my head anymore, but it's like it's insane the amount of bad shit that happens to Gotham City, and at a certain point you'd have to go like, wait a minute, Batman, you're actually shitty at your job. So we got to have Barbara Gordon, talk about Batman, who's karate chopping poor people, as you know, and then there's really no upside for Batman to actually fix Gotham City because it is the thing that he needs because it's the only thing that he gets this validation from. And uh,
I mean, Joker sees him better than he does. He's like, I mean, it's one of the things in the Nolan's films that he got the line right in there. He's like, "Look, you're a freak like me."
Hmm.
He's like, "You're just me. You're
yeah,
just taking a moral high ground that you
yeah,
think you have, and
yeah,
we're just all existing doing crazy things."
yeah. But there's a little
Um,
bit of Alan Moore killing joke in there
Yeah.
too, and a
yeah,
little bit of Frank Miller. I mean, we're
Yeah. Just one bad day.
yeah, yeah. It's just yeah, you know,
but
It,
talking about collecting, we do want to talk to you about collecting physical media film.
yeah.
That's what we do here. So please tell us what kind of collection you got going on over there. You got to have we talked to Sean Baker. He has a whole apartment dedicated to
Yeah.
his physical media collection. So you have an apartment.
I have several closets full of stuff. I mean, I when as soon as like VHS, as soon as you could buy VHS, I probably started buying things.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that stuff anymore, but I would buy the Disney, buy those Disney big clamshell VHSs for my mom and dad for Christmas every year. Buy them a new movie, whatever had come out, Bambi and Dumbo and everything. And I just like to, if I couldn't, because I like to rewatch stuff. I like to study stuff. So being able to get Heat on VHS or something and be able to watch the bank robbery scene and that sort of thing, in the double VHS Heat. That was something I'd watch over and over again and study. So, and then I think it's also about uh, sometimes it's also about the extras. Some of my when it transitioned to DVD and you could get. I remember one of the first commentaries I listened to was Darren Aronofsky talking about Pi and talking about all the things he learned making that movie and the assumptions that he made, on set versus what he saw editorially and stuff like that. And it was like you just get this masterclass, this filmmaker talking about these things and these anecdotes, or Steven Soderbergh on the Limey disc and
Oh
talking with
yeah.
the writer Lem Dobbs and talking about their process and that sort of thing. I mean, it was really. Uh, Really that was that was probably really when I got into collecting stuff when DVDs landed, because then I was like, oh shit, there's all of these things, and then there's the filmmakers and the talking and the deleted scenes and the you know making of all these documentaries that they made for the Hitchcock releases and stuff like that. That was all really exciting and important to me. Uh, and then then it became things having to do with like the cover art or the Wong Kar Wai collection that that the Criterion did, where it's all some movies that I had never had a chance to see. I saw Chungking Express in the movie theater when I was I guess just post college or something, um, and then but I didn't get to see his earlier movies, Happy Together and stuff like that, and so to be able to get that collection and watch these movies, and kind of program your own sort of film festival, of the films and kind of watch them all back to back and see his evolution and that sort of thing. I mean, that's I don't know why. I don't know why. It's probably a question I probably should ask you guys, because it's just like, why do we like? Why do we collect these things? Why do we like these things? What is it about? It's easy. I've got a deep fucking iTunes library too. When I went to Sydney, because doing the Lego movies, I lived in Sydney, Australia for a while, and so I couldn't bring physical media there, and it didn't make sense to buy, even though I did, buy a lot of Blu-rays and stuff like that when I was there. So I started just putting buying movies on iTunes, and but nonetheless, I still would prefer when I'm at home, even though it's more convenient maybe to watch a streaming movie or something I've already got on iTunes. I like pulling out the physical stuff and watching it. And again, I don't know why that is. I don't know why I would have a hard time getting rid of I've got a steel case of the thing in Blu-ray, but I've also got a DVD that I have, or and sometimes it's also like I remember like Roddy Piper came into Robot Chicken, and I had to get my copy of They Live, DVD signed by him, and so that's got his. I can't get rid of that because it's got
No.
Roddy Piper's autograph on it. But yeah, why do you guys think that? Like, what is it? What is it? Why do we do this?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with like what you were talking about that additional context that's on there with features. That's one thing. We know that thing's got a lot of knowledge there, where it's about gathering knowledge. Why we choose to pick physical media over maybe like a streaming is because I think for somebody like you, maybe, you have an inside appreciation for what it takes to make these things. And so that convenience factor that people have because they don't have that relationship with movies like we do, or like we very much study this. We love film, and we really understand that how hard it is to make movies and how hard it is just to get them made. And so I think that appreciation lends itself also to the fact of physical media, because that extra steps that we take, that extra things that we get with it, is part of the experience and of that film, and kind of memorializing that film in our collection, keeping it in our collection, and having a place in it. Of course, these are things they can all disc rot and die one day, but it's like a life on the shelf, and I think it's showing more appreciation for the film, for the filmmakers, the people behind the movie. I think that all is the weight behind why we love it, because
Right.
people might look at it as just taking up space, that it's just,
Yeah.
just a thing. And then we're just like, maybe we're hoarders and we just have an
Yeah.
impulse. And some of
That could be
some of
part of
that's
it.
in there. Some of that's in there when you're really in it, like we are.
I am
But
literally buried in it right now.
yeah, some of that's there, but I think it's also it's at the heart of it. There's a love for movies, and there's a love for wanting to feel like there's a little bit of that you're gathering knowledge. That's how I feel about it. It's
Right.
about
Well,
holding it in my
you
hand.
always call it your own library, right?
Yeah, it's a library. It's like
I
people
like
collect books.
having that access to it readily at hand, literally readily at hand, has always been something for me. And it's also, you know, I think it depends on the individual, but for me, like I always wanted to collect something. Early on in my life, I wanted to collect comic books, but I never really did until much later on in life. I wanted to collect books, and I did that early on and still do to this day. But then collecting movies, there was just something about being able to go to the movie theater and then later on I can revisit that movie again at home. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably how they sold the whole idea of the home video market, really. It's like, hey, that movie you just saw in the theater, you can now see it in the comfort of your own home. There's that aspect. And to me, it's also become kind of a source of pride, if you will. Maybe there's a little ego behind it, where it's the idea that, hey,
No,
look
no.
at all of my things. Look at my new shiny things.
Or
Like
I've got this one thing that
yeah, it's like
is
look at me. I've got I've oh, you want to watch this movie? I've got it. You want all that stuff, and then it's actually also become like beneficial because stuff I bought years ago is coming back, is now being useful now. Like I've got the seasons of Robot Chicken that you worked on,
yeah.
so it's like, hey, I never thought I would meet you or Chris McKay, but I've got his work
Yeah.
if that means anything. So that's kind of a source of pride. Also, I also like seeing the evolution of things because you really do see it. The home video market from even from the year 2000 to now, is vastly different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's morphing and changing all the time. New qualities, new formats, new technology, um, all that kind of stuff. And it's like I said, also being able to curate what you would like to watch is also something I think goes into it as well.
Yeah.
If I want a movie, I can own it. And we talk about this all the time. Streaming isn't the most reliable thing, and I think we're seeing it now.
Yeah.
There's a shift right now in streaming. We're seeing we saw this boom over the last several years, and now we're seeing it kind of come back down a little bit,
It's
where
contracting.
we're
Yeah.
seeing companies not invest as much anymore in new material, or keep old material, or even keep old material around. We're seeing it, where certain things are leaving formats, moving to other formats, or just disappearing in general. So it's like they sold us on the idea that, hey, streaming, it's at your fingertips. Well, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
So
take this away from you.
So yeah,
It
so it's the I
really
think another thing is that sense of ownership. We we
that too.
we we want to feel safe that we have these things and they're with us, and so it's I
Yeah.
think that's a lot of it too. You know,
And yeah, that brings us to, the Tomorrow War, where
Mm.
what happens if Amazon not gonna happen, but if Amazon goes under, I won't have access to be able to watch that
yeah.
movie.
Where's Tomorrow War? Where do I get
Y
that now?
you know,
Yeah.
it it's kind of like,
Do you have a copy that you can burn us?
yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
say yeah,
I wish I did. I mean,
he
I
probably
wish
has the
I had a
film print.
physical copy of it. I mean, that we were very at the time, we had made this movie, and we the pandemic wasn't over when we were finishing it up, and so they basically had to make a choice as to whether or not they're going to hold and try to do like some sort of theatrical release, or try to find a streamer that wanted to buy it. And fortunately, Amazon came along and bought the movie. But it does, I've seen that movie. I got to see that movie in a theater like several times during when we previewed it, and then which was still rough and the visual effects weren't done. And then when I finally did the QC, like I did today on Renfield, where I got to go into a room that is basically the size of a real theater with this real giant screen and amazing sound, and get to see that movie. And that movie, I'm glad that it got on Amazon, and I'm glad that it played really well, and those guys were really happy with it, and it played around the world. And it's still one of the number one, if not. You never know exactly what to believe from anybody,
Right, right.
but they do say that it's still like the, if not one of the, not the top, but one of the top movies on Amazon still to this day. Um,
That's great. That's
but
great.
it is a movie that was designed to play in a movie theater, and it was a movie that was big and epic, and with and it plays really well in a theater experience. I mean, and that's hard to replicate. I mean, even I'm sure you guys have a nice setup at home to watch movies and all that kind of thing, and I do too. But it's not the same thing, because there is that communal aspect
Yep.
Mm,
to
Yeah,
it.
we talked about it earlier.
yeah.
It plays an important factor that I think people take for granted. And
I also think
but
some movies are specifically designed to play on a large screen. Some movies
yeah,
are shot in IMAX cameras to specifically show in IMAX theaters. So like you can't really replicate that at home
Or a
unless you have
comedy, just
an IMAX
doing
theater.
something where it's meant to be funny, that's meant to be a room full of people laughing. That
yeah, yeah.
that's
And
It becomes contagious. Yeah,
it's also
and,
made
and even
specifically for that.
yeah, and even dramatic movies or horror films, like
yeah,
people get silent.
yeah,
Rare when you got good audience members, of course, nowadays. But when a tense moment happens in a good movie, people get quiet and you notice it. You're like, wow,
yeah.
you know, so that's good stuff. But I do want to, to our last little bit here, I want to make it back around to your new film, Renfield. Nicolas Cage. Okay,
Yeah, I
I
knew
got
he
to
was gonna
know, how
squeeze
was
this
it
in at the
working?
end.
How was it working with my favorite actor of all time?
Cage is brilliant. He is a lot of fun. He loves making movies. You couldn't ask for a more uh, joyous person to be around, because he really is having fun every minute and just wants to do the work. Loved obviously playing Dracula and being able to follow in the footsteps of his Christopher Lee, who's one of his idols, and obviously Bela Lugosi and other people too. But Christopher Lee is a big, influence on him, and I guess on Season of the Witch, he got to work with Christopher Lee for a little bit,
Oh
and
wow, yeah,
really inspired by him. And but those movies, those Hammer movies, were the Dracula movies for him when he was growing up. And the thing he says, besides California Kinski, the thing that he says on set, you know, the sort of the atmosphere of what we were doing is, he's like, this is what I always, he said something to the effect of, this is what I always try to work on movies that feel like this, where it feels like that Super 8 feeling,
mm,
the way that it felt when he was making movies with his friends and his cousins and things like that. When there's making movies in the backyard, and he likes that. He wants to just have it feel like that, to feel that kind of freedom, that it's creativity, fast moving, energy, like, and no shame, just no rules, like try things, that
yeah,
sort of thing. Like, that's something he really responds to, and really liked about the process. And I think that, and his favorite movies that he's enjoyed working on, it sort of feels like that, so yeah, he is a really, he's uh it's funny because you don't know what to expect. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. You sort of see these people, I've been a Nick Cage fan since Birdie, and so, but you don't really know what to expect. You just, you sort of just know them, via, whatever, interviews and stuff like that. And he couldn't have been more like just gung ho
yeah,
and collaborative, and willing to try anything. And he's excited about movies, and he has just a real deep knowledge about performances and actors and characters, and he can stay with you on references. A lot of people sometimes fall off, and he sees a lot of movies. He watches everything.
yeah. Yeah, I've seen him in interviews bring up tons of, obscure films, just classic films, and just I love when I see people in film show their love for film. That's I think that's lost on a lot of people in the industry
I
that
feel like
that yeah.
I feel like you don't expect it. You don't expect people within the industry to be so in love with it
Yeah,
because they're in it so much. You know what I mean? So it's like this must be natural to them, but no, there's a real grounded, grounded appreciation for the love of movies for kind of for many people who work in it. Not only actors and actresses, but people like you, Chris, and other directors and editors and all that kind of stuff. The bedrock of it all that I think we've discovered when we've interviewed anyone is the love of movies. That's where
yeah,
it all starts, and that passion continues on and even grows as people get older and get more and more involved in it in whatever facet. But it's like kind of like you said, Steven, I wouldn't expect that, but yet it makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Well, I
yeah,
mean, but it's just that not everybody shows it. Like I think a
Mm.
lot of people have it, but you don't see a lot of these stars talking about it in interviews, bringing up, Nicolas Cage bringing up, French films, or bringing up like,
right,
there's just not that's not happening in interviews. It's always about something about fashion or something, something about, just something that's kind of like about something that's not about movies in general. It's
Well, it's
it's
usually
just
generic talking points,
some
like,
generic talking points, and I
mm,
love seeing when actors and filmmakers and things really show their passion for the thing that they work in, and not just that it's a business and that they're trying to get to the next movie, and that they're, I love like what you're doing, like our conversation, Chris. You're showing why you do this, and why I think you're good at it is because you are very invested, and it's not just a job for you. It's
yeah, yeah.
so
I'd do it for free if I could do it for the rest of my life, because
mm,
that's
it's the most fun thing. I mean, I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky that I get to do what I do.
yeah. Yeah, and I did see that Renfield is opening at the Overlook
Yeah,
Festival on the 30th. So, and that's of course in New Orleans where you guys shot. So that's a pretty cool thing for the people that were there.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. We're really fortunate that was all kind of coincided at the right time, and that the film festival allowed us to sort of be their opening film and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think Cage and I are going to be there for opening night. So that's gonna be
That's
exciting.
fantastic, man. It's going to be a great treat for everybody there,
Yeah.
and that everybody, at the beginning of this, we talked a little bit about what Renfield is about. Quick, what's the pitch? What's the pitch? Why should people go see
Yeah. Why should people
Renfield on April 14th in theaters?
Yeah, because it's because I mean for me selfishly it's I like movies that take swings and try things. It's not a cookie cutter Dracula movie. It's a movie about a toxic narcissist. It's a movie about codependency.
Yeah.
It's a movie about the boss from hell, and we can all relate to bad bosses, bad boyfriends, bad girlfriends, all that kind of thing. And Renfield and Nick Holt is a brilliant Renfield. He's a guy who has this terrible boss and meets Aquafina's character, who's a pretty hard edged cop, and realizes he needs to stand up to his boss, and goes to a Codependence Anonymous meeting, and tries to figure out how he can leave Dracula. So that's
That's
That's as good
that.
of a pitch as I ever heard.
It's a good, yeah, dude. You had me, and then we didn't talk much about Aquafina. She's hilarious. I love what she does, and I'm excited. I'm so excited to see this film, Renfield, coming out April 14th in theaters. Chris, this has been great. This has been a great conversation. Great talking with you.
It's great talking to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you had a good time, and I hope everything is successful for this film, and maybe we'll see a Renfield too.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Or you're going to direct like the cinematic universe movie with all of these
Right.
new characters versions.
Whatever
I can't
whatever
wait.
comes
I can't
along.
wait.
I
Are
think
you?
Chris just said it. He'll do anything.
He'll
you
do
know?
anything. He loves it. But Chris, have a good rest of your night. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Talk soon.
And that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was one of my favorite interviews we've done. And I'm not just because he's, a world famous director, but no, he was just such a good dude, man. He was just such a genuine guy, easy to talk to. Was a real, he listened to our show, and he enjoyed it, and he wanted to come back. He told us he would love to come back and talk movies with us. And so I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to do that again with him. And yeah. And
I can't wait until we get to see what next project he's working on, and we maybe bring him back for that as well. One thing I am learning about kind of a lot of the people that we interview, specifically, people in the more production side of movies, is they don't really they don't have the preconceived ego that you may think they have. They're kind of just like working in a profession. Their profession just happens to be then viewed by millions of people.
Yeah. And
But
if it
they're
seems
very
that
down to
way,
earth.
yeah, they are. And I think even if it seems that way, I think what you have to realize is that these are busy people, so they kind of have to like really compartmentalize their time. So if it seems like that they're like just cutting you off, it's probably not really that. It's probably just more like I don't have time to because I have like 20,000 other things I got to do, and I got family, and I got like whatever else it is, and
Oh yeah.
it's
And
just that's just the reality.
specifically for Chris, is that he had just wrapped up
Yeah.
working on Renfield, right before
Right
recording
before
with
he came to
us.
talk to us.
So kind of wrapping things up. Really, I think about what it was, less than a month out, or about a month out from when it was supposed to come out. So everything kind of comes to a head, comes to a figurehead all at once. Deadlines have to be met and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
you hear stories about this all the time, where some directors uh, are working on the movie up to the premiere, like the day before, the night before. You've heard all kinds of stories like that. So yeah, the movie industry is hustle and bustle,
I
ever flowing, ever moving.
Yeah, and it's just great that he's, even though he's been doing, a lot of studio stuff in recent years, he seems to still be a really humble dude and is willing to talk with us nobodies. So, with that said, Andrew, let's get into the Blu-ray stuff.
Yes,
The stuff that people are just they get hungry for. They want to hear us talk about movies, right?
I hope so.
Um, I hope
I
so.
hope so. I mean, why else would you be here? Fortunately, we do have quite a few things to talk about, and it started out this week on Monday, and it kind of grew from there. Um,
Snowballed.
yeah, and it's some things from a bunch of different places. So we're going to be bouncing around a bunch, all across the board. But I think I want to start up with what started off the week really was the Shout Factory and Scream Factory stuff. This
Okay.
is their June releases. And some upgrades here, some new stuff. So we'll get into it. First up here is a 4K UHD of Creepshow, and Creepshow's been out on Blu-ray so many times over the years. At least for me, I always saw this in the stores and online. Just, I was gonna say creeping around. Oh, what a pun that
That's
would
a
be.
little bit too on the nose,
That's a little
man.
bit too much. Yeah, Creepshow is the anthology movie directed by uh, the
George
George A.
Romero.
Romero in
Yeah.
1982, written by Stephen King,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a bunch of like 5 creepy stories, short films, all having to do with like creepy horror comics, EC comics, stuff like that. And yeah, it's a classic. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have to really further explain
No,
that. Pretty sure many people have seen it. Originally, it did come out on Blu-ray from Warner Brothers in 2009, and then it's gotten several releases after that, including a special edition from Scream Factory slash Shout Factory in 2018. And I'm pretty sure this is just porting over all of the special features from that time. So if you already
yeah,
own that release, I'm guessing it's one of those where do you want the upgrade or do you visuals or do you not? Um,
I
up to
got
you.
that Blu-ray, and I'm probably okay with keeping that one. And I know that the sequel Creepshow 2 had an Arrow release, and I have that one. So it's kind of
Uh,
annoying that two different companies, but they made them pretty
Well,
similar.
stay tuned, Steven, because there is a
I know,
Creepshow 3,
I
and
know, I know.
it's getting a Blu-ray release from Shout Factory,
Yeah.
on June 27th, and it's part of this slate here. I did not know there was a Creepshow 3.
Well, what's annoying about it is it doesn't look anything like the packaging of the other ones.
Yeah,
it's,
well,
it's
you're
just a
right.
Blu-ray
It
case.
kind of doesn't.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not a much celebrated film. It's actually a Shout Factory exclusive, so I'm pretty sure it's exclusive to their website, limited to
yeah.
1,500 copies. So that kind of goes to show you that maybe there's not a big demand for it, if they're not really
Well,
putting a
I'm sure
lot
there's going to be
into it.
a demand for it, but
Well,
it's
if they're not giving it a wide release, I would assume that it's for a specific type of collector who's got to have them all.
probably
But moving on from there, we have a movie called Private Parts, which is not the Private Parts movie that you're thinking of. The one with what's his name, Steven? Um,
uh,
do you remember
wow.
the movie Private Parts? Coincidentally, I'm pretty sure it just got
Honestly,
a
this is the private parts I know. This movie.
really. You know,
Well, now I do.
I'm talking about the one with Howard Stern. You
Yeah, I'd
never
never
seen it?
seen it. Never seen it.
Okay,
No.
that movie came out in '97, and it's kind of a biopic about Howard Stern and how he got into the shock jock stuff and
Hmm.
becoming a personality and all those things and whatnot. Um, yeah, it just got a Blu-ray release. Excuse me, in
Wow.
2020. Oh,
Jeez.
2 sneezes in a row.
Dang.
I tried to get out that last bit of information before I sneezed. So it's not that Private Parts. It's a different Private Parts movie that came out in 1972, and this is an odd movie.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Stephen really liked it. I liked it enough.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Well,
cool enough.
what's annoying about this is that now I feel really stupid because for years there's been a film by the same director, Paul Bartel, that's been in the Criterion Collection called Eating Raoul.
Oh,
And
yes.
and it's one that I've always like looked at it and been like, I need to watch this, and I've never watched it. And now I've seen this movie, my first Paul Bartel film, and I'm like, I love this.
Now
If
you
his
want
films are
Eat
like
Raoul?
this, I should have been fucking watching that movie for years, and I could have already watched. It pisses me off that I waited
Yeah,
this
I
long.
remember when that movie came out on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
It was within the last decade, and yeah, it's been available for years. And I know it's always been one of those where people like recommend if you're looking for a blind buy,
Yeah.
Eating Raoul always kind of shows up in those because it's kind of an odd, quirky movie. Yeah, I still have to get it myself. I still have to
Yeah.
watch it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paul Bartel um has done a bit of acting as well,
Oh,
but as
he's
a director,
mostly an actor, I think.
yeah, mostly an actor now that I'm looking at
Yeah.
it. But as a director, you're right. He does have Eating Raoul. Um, think he directed Death Race
He
2000. That's what
did.
it looks
Yep.
like here,
Hmm.
which is a Roger Corman film. What is interesting to me is that Private Parts
Is
feels
his
like a
debut.
Roger Corman film.
It does,
I
and
believe
I
it's
believe it's his first film too. I
yeah, and
believe.
it's produced by Roger Corman's brother. That's why it feels like a Roger Corman film. And that's because I noticed that at the beginning of the film with the credits. It feels
Yeah.
like a Roger Corman film meets a John Waters film meets a Brian De Palma film. It's got those three odd 70s combinations within it. And that's the way I interpreted it. But for those of you interested in it, it's about a movie. It's a movie about a young girl named Cheryl who moves from like Ohio to Los Angeles, and she's staying with a friend, and
Staying with her
she ends up
sister.
getting kicked out.
Thought she's staying with her sister. I
No,
believe it's her sister. I thought.
no, it's her friend.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
and then
I thought they talked about their mother, but I mean maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think it is.
I thought that was their sister. Never mind.
Maybe
All
it
right.
is. Huh.
All right. It
Yeah, it
doesn't really
says
matter that much.
no, it doesn't really matter because it's not important at all. But she ends up getting kicked out of that living situation,
Yeah.
and remembers that she has an aunt who runs a hotel, and she
Yeah.
goes and stays at that hotel that her aunt runs, and it turns out to be a very odd, quirky type of mysterious hotel where weird stuff is going on. You got
Yes.
some weird individuals living there, and she kind of gets caught up in all the stuff that's happening there. There's a really creepy photographer person living there who's kind of stalking her, and things kind of escalate with that. But there's so much more going on. But it's a weird kind of vibe going on with this movie. Weird tone.
There's a weird sense. There's a quirkiness. There's always a very sexual tension in the air with this movie because a lot of what is going on with our lead character is that she's obviously kind of like sexually curious,
Mm,
and like at the beginning of the movie she's watching I guess her friend or I guess it's her friend or her sister, doesn't really matter, is watching her with her boyfriend having sex, and they catch her, and then she acts like she wasn't watching but she really kind of was. So she's curious about sex, and so she goes to this place, and when she gets there she sees this photographer guy, and she starts to get curious about him, and then she's told not to go roaming around the hotel. Of course, she wants to do that because she's bored. She's a young person, and it just there's this kind of like shroud of sexualness over the movie the whole time, and then it
yeah,
gets
that's
more
what
and
I
more.
that's what I think about when I think of the Brian De Palma influence coming
Yeah,
into
yeah,
it. Also kind of taking what Brian De Palma took from Hitchcock, the idea of voyeurism, and then
yeah.
kind of twisting it into kind of a sexual perversity
I would
or
say the Hitchcock
something
is a
like
good
that.
Hitchcock. Hitchcock elements are in this too as well. I think with the aunt and somebody else, her relationship with somebody else has a
Yeah,
very
there's a lot of
Hitchcock.
stuff going on in this
Yeah,
movie. And then you're kind of unraveling it as you go along, and then things
it's
happen.
it's a
It's
bonkers movie, but it's real. I
it's worth a
honestly think
watch.
it's
Yeah.
worth a watch, and it's honestly kind of like, I don't know if this had influence on things later, but to me maybe it had an influence on Ryan Murphy's American Horror Story, the season where they're at the hotel. I know that that's based on a real hotel, but this movie did come out in the 70s, so maybe this did have somewhat of an influence. Who knows? But um, yeah, it's kind of a cool movie. I very much plan to pick it up. So
Oh, okay then. It's got Steven's full endorsement.
it's got my full
Um,
endorsement.
something that's in a similar kind of creepy vein is The Strangler. Now, The Strangler is a movie from 1964 starring Victor Buono. Victor Buono was in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. He has a small role in that film, which I think came out like 2 years before this film came out. But Victor Buono plays the titular character of the Strangler. Leo Kroll is his name, and this is actually based on. I think it's loosely based on the Boston Strangler, where it's someone who is strangling women and leaving a calling card or of a stocking or something around the neck, and that was kind of what the Boston Strangler did. What is um, it also kind of has a little Hitchcockian thing going on in this movie because of that. Because the character reminds me a lot of Norman Bates
Mm.
because he has this weird oppressive attachment relationship with his mother in the film, and that's what kind of drives his psychosis to commit these murders. And that's kind of what happens with Norman Bates. So that's the connection I got there.
All right. Yeah, I saw this available to watch and I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I have seen a later. I don't know if it's inspired by the same story, but I did see a Boston Strangler film that I think Twilight Time put out. Um,
Really?
it's a I think it's either a 70s or an 80s film.
What is interesting is I think in the same week or a couple of days earlier, I saw the new film titled Boston Strangler with Keira Knightley,
Yeah, that
uh,
movie. Yeah, yeah,
which just came out, and it's about the Boston Strangler in the
yeah,
1960s. And this movie is kind of based on that. So these kind of go all hand in hand.
yeah,
People are
yeah.
constantly fascinated with like serial killers or serial murderers
Especially
from
serial killers
that
that
time.
kill women.
Well,
That
they often do. That
yeah,
often happens just to be the case in general. They
yeah.
kind of prey upon women. And there's been a huge push for a lot of that stuff in recent years with movies and documentaries. You know, true crime has had a big popularity boost over the
Netflix
last several years.
documentaries have been on rampage right now for a while.
Yeah.
All them
So
Netflix movies and documentaries, and yeah, it's crazy. But
yeah, people are fascinated with that stuff constantly. But moving on from The Strangler is their biggest release and kind of biggest announcement that got the most people buzzing, including us here on Chasing Labels. Shaw Brothers Collection Volume 1. That's right. They are putting out their own Shaw Brothers collection a la Arrow. And no, there is no crossover here between the movies in this set and the movies in the Arrow sets that are currently out, being Shaw Scope Volume 1 and 2. These films are all from the Shaw Brothers catalog from the late 60s, and there is 11 films in the set. So please excuse me as I go through all of them. We have The Assassin, The Thunderbird Sword, The Golden Swallow, The Jade Raksha, The Bells of Death, The Sword of Swords, Killer Dart, The Invincible Fist, Dragon Swamp, The Flying Dagger, The Golden Sword. So
a lot of daggers and swords in
a
there.
lot of daggers and swords here.
I
I
love Dragon Swamp. I want to know what that's
Yeah, I
about.
know. What a title.
It sounds like
What
it
is
should be like a Leonard Skinner album or something.
Oh, it
I don't
probably
know.
should. I didn't get a chance to watch all of these. In no surprise here, a lot of these are not available to watch
Yeah.
or stream anywhere or rent anywhere. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But I can tell you this just off the top of my head. I did get to see The Assassin and The Golden Swallow. The Golden Swallow is actually cool to Come Drink with Me, which is a movie that we've talked about here on Chasing Labels because it got a release from both, I think no, it got a release it got a release from Arrow here in the US and 88 Films in the UK. So this movie's already been out on Blu-ray twice already. And
Mm,
now its sequel is on Blu-ray. And I went and looked. None of these movies have Blu-ray releases at all right now, other than this set that's coming out.
mm.
So Chow Factory is really kind of breaking the mold here and putting these films out. And it is a volume 1, so I'm assuming there's going to be more volumes coming. That would be my guess
That makes
or hope.
sense. I mean, the only thing I'm a little sketched out about is because unless we're told otherwise, is there a chance that these get a Region B, release from Arrow?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that so far the Shaw Brothers sets have had a US and and a region, region freeness to them. They have two different versions they've put out. So maybe they're trying to stay region free to sell more. But
You're
maybe
talking
they'll
about the
decide.
Arrow sets, right?
Yeah, the Arrow Shaw
Yeah.
scope sets. So
Yeah.
far, the releases of them have had a Region A and Region B component to them, but this is a Region A release, so wouldn't I wonder if maybe they would consider releasing these in Region B land? You know,
Oh, yeah. I didn't
you
even
know,
think of that. Like, would they release some of these individually?
yeah,
Who owns the rights in the UK to these films?
yeah,
Is it Arrow? Is it 88? Is it
yeah.
Eureka? I mean, we've kind of seen everybody kind of change hands when it comes to who owns what where.
Because
Um,
I'd hate to buy this set and then Shaw Scope Volume 4 has like half of these on it, and I'm like,
yeah, or like Shaw
fuck.
Scope 3 has 2 or 3 or whatever of these.
Because
And
the
now we're just
license, yeah,
now we're mix matching
and
sets.
it's like
Drive
Jesus
me
Christ.
crazy.
It's kind of like how some of these film noir sets have been, where we've gotten, Imprint's got some crossover with Indicator, or has got some crossover with Kino, or like it's just like you end up rebuying a few movies
Yeah,
out of
you
these
end up
sets.
owning the same movie 2 or 3 times over.
Yeah, and I just don't
Like
want to get in that situation.
without being able to not do that, because if you want to get
Some of these other
every set,
movies, yeah,
yeah, if you want to get every set and they only have certain movies that are only available in that set, and then but another set has one of the movies available, like, everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's just a
yeah, it's
big jigsaw puzzle pain in the butt. But as of right now, it looks like the only way to get these movies is through this set, which is coming out in June.
yeah,
June 13th, and I love that it's a nice box set. It's got great artwork on it and stuff. The only thing we don't know right now is what the special feature situation is looking like.
yeah.
Either there aren't any, or they just haven't announced them yet, or they
Well,
have announced them. I lied.
I'm sure there's gonna be yeah, I was gonna say I'm sure there's features.
There's audio commentary. It just says no. There is no features yet. That's something else.
I was gonna say they don't typically announce theirs
No,
until
they don't have.
later.
They haven't announced the features yet, but they have announced the only release here that they've really announced the features on are the ones that they've already put out before on Blu-ray. Because I accidentally skipped over one that I'll get to like right now. Because I think I don't have anything else to say about this Shaw set other than
Yeah.
I I kind of want it, but I'm also with Steve in that I'm curious if we're going to see these come up from some other
And
place.
honestly, the way a lot of the Shout Factory sets don't seem to sell out very fast, I feel like I have time. I can wait.
Yeah,
Because like you can still get that Friday the 13th set, and I thought that shit was gonna sell out like in no time,
yeah.
but
The
you can
only
still find
way
it.
Yeah, the only way that stuff ends up selling out sometimes is if they lose the rights to it or if it's
Yeah,
something super, super popular. Like
yeah,
that Halloween collection set that they had like years ago, the ones with the black cases. That thing has been sold out for years or it's been out of print for years. And I think that was more of like it's sold out like selling wise, not that they lost the rights to it or anything. Um, but the one movie that I did skip over accidentally is they're putting out a 4K UHD release of Motel Hell, which they've already released in a special edition
yeah,
several years ago, and that one has all the same special features. This is a very odd movie. It's a very odd film. I'm pretty sure
yeah,
everyone or most people listening have seen it before. It's kind of like a classic cult horror film
yeah,
from the
yeah.
80s. Um,
It's got
it's
it's got a title that's kind of draws you in. Motel Hell is kind of like it's got a good ring to it, so it kind of brings you in with the title, and then you got these kind of like that Norman Rockwell type of like what's the painting of the farmer
I think
wife?
I think that's Norman Rockwell.
Is that
Maybe
it?
not.
Yeah.
No, Norman Rockwell's kind of a more homely setting. I know what you're talking about.
But you know what I mean? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the farm wife, and it's got that them. They're like the two main characters, and they're the ones that run the hotel. And then it's like you slowly find out that there's some shit going down behind the scenes. Like it's kind of weird that they're at it. Their niceness is kind of a front for some weird shit. So
Yeah, they're doing farming, but they're not they're
they're
not
not farming
they're not farming
vegetables.
vegetables.
Yeah,
They're not farming vegetables, and they got a whole industry going on there, and they're preying upon people who
yeah,
are driving by, who are maybe having some car trouble, or people who get there and want to stay at the motel for whatever reason. Basically, it's that old timey story where don't stop it at a creepy motel in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Bad things tend to happen
Psycho
in
told
these
us
movies.
that. Yeah.
But yeah, this had a Blu-ray release back in 2014. That's the special edition I was referring to, and I'm pretty sure this is supporting over all the special features from back then. So that is it from Shout Factory / Scream Factory for all their June releases. And moving
Yeah, and
on
well,
from there,
you slightly mentioned Creepshow 3. You didn't really
I
talk.
mentioned it. It's coming out and it's limited to 1,500 copies
Oh,
from their
you know,
website.
I'm sorry.
That's
You
it.
did say that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, let's go over to Kino. Let's get Kino out of the way
Okay. Let's get
because
that out
I'm
of the
not very
way.
familiar with many that's here, so I want to kind of run through these.
All right. Luckily, I watched a couple of them.
Cool. So we starting at Juggernaut.
Yes.
Juggernaut. We got Richard Harris, Omar
Sharif.
Juggernaut, and it looks like a kind of a war film. That's what it's
It
looking
is
like
not
to
a
me.
war film.
It's not.
No, I thought that's what I thought too when I saw the
Yeah.
title and saw the cover and the poster. I was like, "Oh, is that a war film with Richard Harris and Omar Sharif?"
So
It's
wait,
not.
is it a Marvel Comics movie?
No, it's not the Juggernaut, bitch.
The Juggernaut
Um,
bitch.
it's it's a movie that's about a hostage situation.
Okay.
So the Juggernaut is an ocean liner that is transporting people across the Atlantic Ocean. I forget where they're going from or where
I guess
they're.
it's
I
a
think
better
they're
name.
arriving.
I guess a better name than Titanic.
I guess they're
It's
going. I
another
think they're
name for
going
something
from.
that's big.
I think they're going across the ocean, whatever the case may be. But some terrorist has decided to put 7 bombs across, or place 7 bombs on the ship, and they can't be tampered with, they can't be messed with, or they will explode and everybody's gonna die. And he calls in the threat to the company. The company calls the captain, who I believe is Omar Sharif, and they send people in to try to handle the situation. I believe Richard Harris is the head of that team to do that. So the movie is about trying to figure out the situation, disarm the bombs, talk with the perpetrator and find out who that person is and try to find out like what type of bombs are these. You know what I'm talking about. A lot of
Yeah.
tension, a lot of things like that, time ticking down to when this could explode. Um, you know, things like that. I thought it was very good for what it is. It is a film, I believe, that is this yeah, this film is directed by Richard Lester,
Ah,
who I'm pretty sure many
Superman.
people remember who Richard Lester is. He directed Superman 2 and 3, but he also directed um, Hard Day's Night as
Yeah.
well as Help, I think. Those 2 Beatles movies.
Help! I need somebody help. Yep.
Yeah, those 2 films, amongst other things. And he directed those the 3 Musketeers and the 4 Musketeers, which we just
Yeah, we
talked
just
about
talked about that.
recently too, that
Yep.
are getting releases. So yeah, Richard Lester is kind of he's a classic like legendary director, really, if you think about it. Um, you know, Superman 3 being what it is, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and then yeah, so I
Okay.
dug the movie. I liked it.
Cool. Awesome.
It's
Yeah.
it's available to watch on Tubi right now if you wanna stream it. Um, and you get to see Richard Harris doing some good acting in there. So
Well,
that's
that's
Juggernaut.
good. And all right. Well, moving on over, we have looks like coming soon. We're going to be getting another one of them Clint Eastwoods in 4K. Fistful of Dollars,
No, well,
1964.
yeah, what this is they are re-releasing the Blu-rays of A Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. They released these on Blu-ray years ago, and I
Yeah.
guess they didn't go out of I don't know if out of print is the word, but anywho, they're re-releasing them.
And maybe it looks like they're re-releasing them, and maybe everybody's getting the chance to get a slipcover. I guess
Yeah,
because
they
maybe
all have slip covers now. And they all have the new 4K remasters that they've done.
yeah,
But have been available in 4K now for years, and that's kind of what people have buying. This series, the Man with No Name trilogy, has been released so many times on Blu-ray, it's been nauseating to
yeah,
think about it. Um, Yeah, I just
yeah.
don't even wanna think about it. All I know is I have a fistful of dollars and for a few dollars more, and I need to get The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. and then I don't think I ever want to buy these movies ever again. Not because I don't like them, just because I can't keep up with all these releases all over and over again. This is madness.
No, this should be
Um,
the last time you need to buy them.
Hopefully, yeah. So if you don't have this trilogy yet, and you're not 4K capable, buying them on this version of Blu-rays, probably where you want to go. I know there's all kinds of debates about the transfers and the aesthetic of these films and the way they're supposed to look, where they're not supposed to look, and the debates are really virtually endless at this point. So get any edition you want, whatever makes you happy.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was my little rant about that.
I know
But
you were getting a little heated there.
I get a little heated just because the debate's been going on for so many years that it bothers my OCD, because it's like, which one do I get? Which is the right one? Which is the wrong one? Which is the best looking one? And it's drives me crazy. But take me out of here, Steven.
Yeah,
Take
I
me
will take
someplace
you out.
else.
I'll take you out on a train.
Nice.
1978's The Great Train Robbery. Now, I believe this is not the original. I believe there was an older film. I believe, right? This is a remake of The Great
I
Train Robbery.
believe it is.
I think it was like
Yeah,
1930s, maybe.
The Great Train Robbery. Yeah, I mean, there was one in 1903, which
Okay,
is, I
that's
think,
way further back
one of
than
the
I thought.
earliest like movies.
Yeah.
That's the one where it has that guy pointed at the screen. He's got the gun and he shoots right at the audience.
Yes.
He's got the
Yes.
huge
Scared the shit out of
mustache.
people at the time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this version here is starring Sean Connery and Donald Sutherland, and that's a great pairing there, along with Leslie Ann Down. And so in this film, all aboard the runaway action and suspense that in this riveting masterpiece from a legendary writer-director, Michael Crichton, who did Westworld. This is essentially a heist movie, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a train robbery.
Yeah, I mean it's a heist movie set in the Old West, and I mean I've never seen it, but I love. I need to watch more Sean Connery from this time, because honestly, most of my Sean Connery exposure is later in his career. Like, and I'm not big James Bond fan.
Really? I thought you were going to say James Bond.
I'm not. I'm not really a James Bond. I mean, like I like Daniel Craig's James Bond, and I've never really gone back to watch much of the other ones.
Really? I did not know this about you.
Yeah, it's okay.
This is blowing my mind.
It's okay. Maybe I'll get around to it one day, but at this point, I've not seen enough Sean Connery from back in the day. So this is something I'd be interested in looking into, and I've caught some of his early stuff here and there, but it's usually through the show. You know, whenever a release of his comes up, and I feel like I need to watch it for the show, I go and look at it. But honestly, I got a blind spot with his early career, so I'd like to look into this one. Anything on this one?
I can say, well, Michael Crichton is mostly known for being a writer. Obviously, he wrote Jurassic Park, the Jurassic Park novels.
The novel, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Westworld is, I think, probably his most well-known directorial work. He only has 9 credits to his directorial filmography. Westworld being his first feature film, actually. Great Train Robbery being his third. He directed the movie The 13th Warrior, or he's uncredited with doing the reshoots on The 13th Warrior, which is a film that is, I think, criminally underrated. I think it's a movie that Antonio Banderas just doesn't get recognized for, maybe because it's the one he did like right after he did
El Mariachi.
No, the Zorro. He did
Mask of Zorro.
Yeah, and that was, of course, was a huge hit. The 13th Warrior also does not, I believe, have a Blu-ray release here in the US, at least. It's got a couple in Germany and a couple in France, and that is about it. What a damn shame. So if anybody's listening to me, put out the 13th Warrior.
Bullshit.
It's essentially a live-action Beowulf film that's doesn't have the title Beowulf in it. When I was in high school and we were covering Beowulf, I think my senior year, they had us watch the 13th Warrior.
Okay,
that's cool. Interesting. But
I remember, I can visualize the cover in my mind.
Yeah, it's been the same cover for 20 something years. It's Antonio Banderas like staring at you like right into your soul.
Yeah.
But Michael Crichton, more known as a writer and an author than a director, but I I'm down to watch this. I like
Yeah.
a good Western train heist movie. Why not? And for Sean Connery, yeah, he's got a wealth of movies that people should probably watch. Um, he's like another one of the legendary actor who's recently passed. But yeah, kind of surprised you haven't seen the James Bond. Like that seems
I
like
just it's one of them
101.
things. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of them things where it just looks so corny to me sometimes. Just the
Oh,
clips of it I see, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be into
some of
this.
it, yeah, some of it is obviously not great. I mean, some of it's ridiculous. I mean, there's a whole sequence in one of them where there's the climax of the movie is a fight underwater.
Yeah.
And then of course there's Moonraker, which is another one that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, it is also unfortunate that we grew up during the age of Austin Powers, which was a spoof of
And, I
those
love
movies.
Austin Powers. I love Austin Powers. So that's probably what ruins it for me is I'm gonna go back and try to watch that, and I'll just be thinking about Austin Powers.
Exactly. You're
Uh,
gonna be thinking like Austin Powers spoofed this exact scene or this exact
yeah.
moment, and it's
So I'll be
been kind of
laughing at
ruined
it,
for you.
getting the wrong reaction out of it because I'll be like,
Because yeah, oh yeah, because it's hyper masculine, like misogynistic. I mean, even like on Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby, there's a sequence where he's just kind of going around and just like sleeping with random women in this like ski cabin place. It's been years since I've seen the movie. But that movie I think is kind of also underrated in the old James Bond oeuvre. I can go on and on about James Bond.
oh
I've
Jesus.
got love for Timothy Dalton, underrated Bond in my
I like
opinion.
him as an actor, so I mean,
Yeah, but
in
moving on
general.
from
But
Bond or Sean Connery, we've got something else here.
1983's Gorky Park
Yes,
is
Gorky
getting a
Park.
Michael Apt directed with William Hurt and Lee Marvin. Um, yeah, for some reason I feel like I might have seen this before, but I don't know. Did this get a release from
Yeah,
somewhere else?
no,
Yeah.
this is actually it's similar to what we were talking about with the No Name, the Man with No Name trilogy. Uh, this has gotten a release from Kino before, and this is just a
Okay,
re-release.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I think they released this in 2014.
It's
And
been a
this is
minute.
a reissue with a slipcover.
You know what's funny is I'm thinking about it now, and I'm gonna pull my phone out.
Okay,
I might own this movie.
I was just gonna say people can't see you, so you can
Well, I just
you can
want
pull
people
your
to
phone
know
out.
that I'm going this far.
I will say this though, in those Kino sales that they happen to have very often, Gorky Park is featured in there very often.
I I have the movie.
Oh, okay.
so
You
so
could have
uh
watched it, but whatever.
I could have watched it, or I have watched it, and I just don't remember it. But
For those of you,
it's in my collection. Yeah,
yeah, for those of you who don't have it, it is streaming on Tubi right now as of this
yeah.
recording. And this movie is a murder mystery that takes place in Russia in the early 80s. I believe it's set during the time in which the movie came out. Back in the USSR, so you're dealing with the
Back in the
Kremlin, you're
U.S.,
dealing with
back in
stuff
the
like that.
U.S., back in the USSR. Yeah, sorry, we were talking about
Nice.
Beatles
The
earlier.
Beatles. We're back to the Beatles, Richard Lester.
My
Um,
bad.
so uh, William Hurt plays this, I would say, their version of a police detective type of person who is taking on this murder case where they find these three bodies like buried in a park somewhere in Gorky Park, literally. And
Mm.
what's curious about the case is that it that the bodies were maimed in a way in which you can't identify them. Their fingertips were cut off, so you can't get fingerprints. Their faces were removed, so you can't get facial recognition and stuff
Fucked
like
up.
that. And it's pretty gruesome. And and he's trying to kind of figure out who these people are, how were they murdered, all the circumstances behind it. But he keeps kind of hitting certain dead ends where apparently the KGB were involved in it. So they're trying to kind of suppress this. So he's trying to unearth these mysterious secrets that powerful people don't want unearthed. And that's the premise of the movie. He gets in deep with people you shouldn't be getting in deep with. And that's the movie. So
Cool.
that's Gorky Park.
I should probably get it off my shelf and watch it. Um,
It's not a bad movie. It goes on a little too long, I think. I mean,
Okay.
the movie does clock in at 128 minutes, and you kind of do feel it from time to time. I'll also say this: even though this movie is set in Russia, no one in this film is using a Russian accent at all. Lee Marvin is supposed to be this like big time American, like rich businessman, and he sounds exactly like everyone else. And it's kind of funny that they refer to him as like the American. And I'm like, you all have an American accent, or you all have an English speaking accent. This is ridiculous. None of you
Stop.
sound Russian at all. I mean, I think William Hurt tries a Russian accent from time to time, but I honestly could not hear it, none whatsoever. Um, but yeah, a couple of cameos you'll see in this movie. Ian McDermott, who played Emperor Palpatine in Return of the
Star Wars.
Jedi, just a couple of years after this came out, or around the same time this came out. And yeah, he plays Emperor Palpatine to this day. He's in this movie. I didn't even mention in Juggernaut that Anthony Hopkins is in that film as well. At least,
Wow.
yeah, that kind of got buried a bit. I just
You're
want to
doing
make
what
sure it
I did.
wasn't Anthony Hopkins.
You're doing what I did with the when we did the review for the imprint of Fear is the Key. I went randomly. I went back after talking about two other movies ahead of that. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. In Fear is the Key, there was an actor in that movie that I forgot to talk about, and it was
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, just that popped into my head, and then as well as Ian Holm. Ian Holm was in that movie as well.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's kind of actors who would be much famous later on were in that film, but that has nothing at all to do with
With
Gorky
this next
Park
movie or this next
or
movie,
this next movie
which is a French film from 1982 called Millie Millard's Day Dollars. I
or
believe it's
$1,000 billion or
yeah. Or
$1 trillion.
I wanted to go the hard route and say all that stuff because it sounds funny when I try to say it. But yeah, don't know nothing about this one. Looks like we got
No,
some well-known actors though.
yeah,
Or
this was announced like very recently, so I didn't get a chance to see it either.
but
But I kind of
yeah.
do want to see it.
There's no description here. I'm sure we could IMDb it to find out, but I don't have. We're gonna move on.
Okay, I mean, I could do it. I mean,
No, that's
it takes
oh Jesus!
it takes
It takes 2 minutes of dead air time.
all right, all right. All right, we'll just move on then.
Because that has like 5 titles. You'll never find it.
Yeah, to be honest, I also yeah, you're right. It's kind of a pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
So
move on, Steven.
yes,
Next
moving
one.
on. Sorry, movie.
Actually, I did just find it. God damn it.
I knew you were gonna find it because you can't help
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. God damn it. Of course, it's got a long description too. Someone wrote a paragraph here. A young journalist stumbles across something much more sinister than a simple suicide in the death of a politician. The death seems to be an assassination contrived by an American multinational company intent on taking over several French industries. Of course, they are. The journalist's objective is to garner enough evidence to expose the American corporation for what it really is before French companies start disappearing and before any more corpses accumulate, including his own.
Mm,
Nice synopsis.
that's a
Sounds
good
like
synopsis.
company
Yeah.
espionage, international economic espionage.
The Insider. Okay.
Mm,
French Insider. All
damn
right.
corrupt industries. Corporations always get you.
Mm.
But yes,
Well,
that is that movie. Moving on now.
I'm glad we got the description out.
Me too.
But moving on to the next one, we have James Coburn in the President's Analyst. I also feel like this is a movie that has been released somewhere else. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm feeling like an indicator put this out. Maybe I'm guessing. But it is going to have a 2023 4K scan from the original camera negative. And yeah, once again, not familiar with this movie. Anything on this one?
No, I can tell you this. The President's Analyst was put out by Imprint.
I had
Back,
the I part right.
you did back in 2021. It was put out by them. It's their number 42 in their collection.
So pretty early one. Yeah.
Yes, it is, and I believe this looks like yeah, it's a Paramount release. So, and I know they got some type of deal with Paramount going on. But the
Yeah.
description here is When the overworked and stressed out White House presidential shrink runs away, the CEA and the FBI scramble to retrieve him before he could be abducted by various competing foreign intelligence services. Um, I don't know what the CEA and the FBI are. I don't know. But I like James Coburn, so I'll kind of watch anything with James Coburn in it.
Maybe they changed the intelligent agencies just so they didn't get in trouble.
Yeah, they very much could have, because maybe they didn't get clearance in order to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds very interesting to me. Yet again, political intrigue and things like that ensue. I don't know, the 70s, which I think this movie came out in the 70s.
67.
Okay, so that 60s, 70s range had a lot of those movies dealing with political stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's it for Kino.
That's it. But of course, right now there's a sale going on. So
it's going on for the rest of this current month. Actually,
I think it ends the 24th. I want to say
the 24th or 25th.
Yeah. I did pick up like 10 titles. I feel gross after it.
Oh, nice.
I shouldn't have done it.
You get that regret, don't you?
I do. When I get this many titles at once, I'm like, ugh. Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, when you click that place order now button, you have that instant regret right away.
Sometimes it's not all the time, but sometimes it depends on where I am financially. And right now, I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, there's the financial regret, but then I think for me, it's always like, did I get the right titles? Did I get the ones I really wanted to get, or did I leave some good ones behind that I didn't?
Oh, I don't care about that.
Somehow. I mean, I overthink everything.
That you can always get, especially with Kino, you can always come back around to something. But it's for me, it's always financial. It's like, I just spent I dropped another $100. Like, this is gross.
I feel that too.
It's gross. But let's move on. Let's get a couple of these single releases out of the way. We need to talk about a film that has had recent releases, but in a box set, and now it's getting a single release from Blue Underground. We're getting a new 4K restoration of Bob Clark's Death Dream. And yeah, I'm excited for this single release because I really enjoyed this film. Nothing against the other films, of course, in that Bob Clark set. Of course, I like Black Christmas, but the first film in that set, don't really need it. I really like this movie, and I think I want to go after this. So this will be exciting for me. I Blue Underground 4Ks are always really nice, and I think I'm gonna get this one, but no details really yet. So
yeah, I think this is the first time this is getting a 4K release. It's already gotten a couple of Blu-ray releases, so this is kind of coming on the heels of those. For those of you who didn't wait, I guess that's kind of suck in that regard. But I think it's kind of. I just want to make sure. Yeah, Blue Underground has owned the 4K, the Blu-ray rights for years. They put out a Blu-ray back in 2017. In the UK, what was it 101? Is the ones who just put it out in that box set? Steven?
Yes, 101.
Yes.
Yep.
So yeah, Blue Underground puts out gorgeous 4Ks. They're a little expensive, but you get what you pay for. Yeah. You get fantastic looking edition.
And just to quickly recap, what the Death Dream is about is you got a family whose son has gone off to war, and at the beginning he dies in the battle, but at the same time, like, the mom like cries out for him to come home, and like it becomes this kind of like almost weird curse spiritualistic thing that happens, that then eventually their son shows back up home alive after they thought he was dead. And then from there, you start to realize there's something weird going on here, that he's kind of this undead kind of thing walking around. It's a cool movie. I really like it. I like the vibe of the movie. Yeah. So that's Blue Underground's Death Dream. Like I said, no features yet, but I'm sure something will be announced more on it soon. And next, let's go over to MVD, who had a big reveal, and I think it had already been kind of out there, but this is the reveal of what it's going to look like, and the all the features that are going to be involved in their upcoming 4K of Wes Craven's Swamp Thing. So yeah, this is exciting, man. You know, of course, Wes Craven's big time director. And any even when it comes to like directors lesser works, when people put a lot of effort into them, I think people really flock to buying things like this, because I mean Wes Craven's, even this is right around the beginning. This was after he did things like, you know um,
Hills Have Eyes.
Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, and I believe this was sometime a little bit after that. And
Yeah, this is his first kind of big
more
commercial
of a
film.
commercial film. Yeah, I was gonna say
I
studio
mean,
kind of thing.
it's based off of the
Marvel
Vertigo
comic
Comics character of Swamp
or
Thing.
Vertigo, sorry.
Yeah, at that time, I believe Vertigo hadn't been part of hasn't been part of DC Comics yet. I mean, it's part of DC Comics now, but not at the time. Kind of a super popular character. Not I wouldn't say super popular, but he's super popular now. He's more popular now than he was back then. But this is kind of Wes Craven's like first big commercial type of venture. Before this, he had done, like we said, The Hills Have Eyes, Deadly Blessing, Last House on the Left, so kind of a rising star. And then it wouldn't be until after Swamp Thing that he would do A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is
Yeah.
probably his most well-known film, other than Scream and then its subsequent sequels and whatnot. But yeah, we this was originally announced to be coming out back in December. They had done a little announcement that this was on its way, and now we were just getting confirmation and details about what is actually in it. And it
Yeah.
is I think a 2-disc set, and this is actually part of their what they're calling their Laser Vision collection line of 4K releases. Whether that's going to, I'm assuming that's going to carry over to their other 4K releases.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this is getting like there's 2 commentaries. There's plenty of special features on here. Apparently, this is an exclusive restoration of the film, um, from the original camera negative. So this is um, going to be something brand new because this has been released before in a couple of iterations, and this is getting both the theatrical PG version and the unrated international version of the film is going to be on here as well. So we've got everything cooking with this release. MVD does unique stuff, and this is kind of breaking new ground for them because this is their first 4K.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't released it yet, but we did get a talk with the guy, one of the main guys over there, Eric D. Wilkinson, and he does talk about this release a little bit. That'll be released a little bit later this month. But this is
Yeah,
exciting. Yeah,
yeah,
exciting.
and I mean, just to tease that a bit, one of the most passionate people we've ever talked to when it comes to these
Yeah.
things.
Oh
So
yeah.
so you're gonna get a lot of effort put into this, maximum effort. And yeah, this movie's come out in several different versions. I think, yeah, Shout Factory put this out on Blu-ray back in 2013, and that release is now out of print. And MVD, I think, has picked up the. And then of course there was the sequel, uh, which is not well beloved in many ways. The Return of Swamp Thing is just got a 4K release actually by a company called Lightyear back in February. Um,
Mm.
so if you want to pair that up with this, you've got both Swamp Thing movies, and of course, there's tentatively a Swamp Thing movie on the way, so there could be another Swamp Thing coming. And there was a Swamp Thing TV series they did back in the early '90s, I think. There was that one they did a couple of years ago where it was one season and they canceled it before it even started because of money and production money issues. It was a big old mess. But it was great. But I love the character of Swamp Thing, so I can go on a whole big spiel on that. But that's just me. But yeah, that's it for MVD.
And
Steve, is there
that's
any more wonders out there, or we got some more slates
I
to
don't
go
think there's
through?
any more wonders, but that I do want to say that comes out July 25th. So
Oh, okay.
be ready for
Just in
that. I'm
time for your
sure.
summer vacation.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably some pre-orders out there going on. But all right. So let's move on over to Studio Canal.
Oh,
We got four releases from over there. Starting with a film that's getting its 70th anniversary. From 1953, we have The Conquest of Everest. And then we have, going over to 1964, we have, I think, a couple films from the director Morel Box. We have Rattle of a Simple Man. And then from 1957, we have The Truth About a Woman, also directed by Merle Box. And then lastly here, we have The Passionate Stranger from 1957. So a lot of stuff from Studio Canal here. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of their label. This is all from their Vintage Classics collection.
Yeah, I like this Vintage Classics collection line. It reminds me a lot of what was the Arrow line, Steven, that they kind of got rid of?
Arrow Academy.
Arrow Academy. It reminds me kind of their version of that. And these are all films that I don't think I've seen the light of day on Blu-ray ever before. I did get to see one of these movies, and that is The Conquest of Everest. Oh, and I want to put a disclaimer out here. There is a Conquest of Everest streaming on Tubi, but that is not this movie. That is a bold-faced lie. So if you go to Letterboxd and you go to The Conquest of Everest that came out in 1953, and it shows you where you can stream this, it'll show you that it's available to stream on Tubi, but that's not this movie. That's not this movie at all. This is a 1953 documentary about the first ever people to climb to the peak of Mount Everest. And that's what this is about. It's a really good documentary. It clocks in at 78 minutes. It's rather straightforward, and yeah, it's kind of exactly what it is. It gives you kind of like all the details about, how big of a feat it was, and all the different things and ways they had to maneuver the mountain and all that kind of stuff. We've seen so many documentaries, I think, about Mount Everest over the years, and feature films dealing with Mount Everest, that this was kind of a capsule piece of, a documentary being made at the time in which the events occurred.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. Sometimes subject matters like this, you don't need to be all fancy with it. You just need to show what happened, and because you don't want to mess with it, because it's such an achievement all in its own.
Yeah, and if you're a fan of like historical moments, or if you're or a fan of things like that, what I really like is, and was surprised really, is all of the footage they got, the actual footage of people climbing up the mountain, and actual footage of the mountain itself, and things like that. It really kind of encapsulates that time, and as a history buff, that's really really cool. What is interesting is, I think, just from a historical perspective, they when they achieved, when they got up to the mountain, was around the same time that Queen Elizabeth was being crowned queen. And she's since passed then. And she has since passed. And just, I just thought it was a fascinating coincidence that this movie's getting a restoration now. And it encapsulates, God, over half a century ago of time. So yeah, it's just really interesting stuff. I don't know who would want this in their collection, but I guess it's cool to have the option in there.
Yeah.
But the rest of these I didn't get to see because they were kind of really tough to find to watch. But I really want to check out this director.
Yeah, Merle Box.
Muriel Box, because they're obviously putting out all of these films for a reason.
Yeah.
To kind of get her work out there, and I want to see them. They all look fascinating.
Like she was more of a writer than she was a director. Trying to see if I can recognize that any of these films she's done. It's probably just a blind spot for me.
I think it's a blind spot for me as well. I think that's one of the kind of advantages to having these films available now, is to be able to kind of rediscover who this person was in their career. Definitely much more of a writer. Now that I'm looking at her IMDb, she has 26 credits of screenwriting credits, which is way more as a director. Which is 15, which is actually a lot. I feel like I may have seen some of her work, or at least some of the work that she's written, but I don't want to go through all that right now, because we're recording here. We're professionals.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to be.
Well, oh God. But yeah, it's just it's just some hopefully maybe something that could be a nice discovery for everybody. I'm going to look, like you said, look more into it when we got more time. But the last one, Truth About a Woman, also not something I'm familiar with. But all these releases got new restorations. And I've been, I have a few studio canals myself. I have the Elephant Man, Lady Killers, Outsiders, that Melville set that they put out, Total Recall. They put out really good stuff. And I want to get that City of Lost Children 4K is another
Yeah, I
one.
heard it looks fantastic. What
Yeah.
is kind of cool about these releases here, or at least for the passionate stranger and the truth about women, is it looks like there's a documentary that has a part one and a part two on the other. So you kind of have to get both to get the whole thing. It's called "The Woman Behind the Picture: Archive Interview with Muriel Box" Part One, and then on the truth about women, it has the woman behind the picture. The woman behind the picture archive interview with Muriel Box Part 2. So you got to get them both to get that full interview. That's just
Yeah.
smart marketing right there.
Well, yeah. It makes me think
I
about
dig it.
Severin with all their Jess Franco, Stephen Thrower things that
Got
they
to
do,
get
and
them all.
they put them all in all the different releases of all his movies. So yeah, but
I mean, speaking of, do you want to just go there now?
sure.
Yeah, you opened up the doorway. Let's kick it down.
All right.
So Severin has two releases that are coming up. One is Alien from the Abyss, and the other one is Extraterrestrial Visitors. Where do you want to start, Steven? Because I know you got to see both of these, and
Yeah.
I envy you. Not really.
Extraterrestrial visitors. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
here
get
we
it out of the
go.
way. I'm gonna get it out of the way.
Let it go. Let it rip.
This was tough, man. It's a tough one to watch, guys. The way, are you okay, buddy?
No, I'm laughing because
It,
I've seen the movie, and
it's
it's truly one of the most atrocious films ever made.
okay.
They've
Okay. Let me.
It's bad,
This
real
is how
bad.
I. This was my first time watching it, and so this is what I told Andrew when I was finally done after I had watched it. And asked him. He asked me what I thought, and I said, "This is how I describe it." E.T. Obviously, this is a movie that's very much trying to rip off E.T. We get it. You know how, like, at the beginning of E.T., E.T.'s like in the far when he first gets to Earth, he's like in the woods. Well, the whole movie, most of the movie is like being trapped in that scene for like an hour and a half, like just stuck in the woods, waiting to fucking see an alien for like a good chunk of like the first half of the movie, and then if you see him, he's like in the dark and you can barely see him.
Yeah, he
Um,
just doesn't his eyes just glow
yeah, like things like that.
like
And then
diamonds or something? Yeah.
finally, when the kid comes into finds him, you start to see more of him. You interact more with it. But either way, this movie, I don't even know what to say about it. I can't even. I don't even know. I just
It's
sat there
bad.
just in shock the whole
It
time, just thinking like
it makes
Severin,
Mac and me look like
a master
Citizen
fucking.
Kane.
It makes me think of yeah, pretty nice, very
Yeah,
nice.
I know this movie as Pod People because Mystery Science Theater
Yeah,
did an episode on it once upon a time, and I've seen that episode twice. Um, this movie, yeah, the movie's exactly how Steven describes
I
it.
don't know.
It's bad. It's also has one of like just a terrible dub on it. Um, the kid calls it Trumpy because it's got like a Trump nose, like
Jumpy,
an
jumpy.
elephant. Calls it
Yeah,
Trumpy. Um, I guess man, if you like this type of stuff, go right ahead.
I'm
But I
sure there's
couldn't. I can't do it, and I can't do
I
it.
can't. It's just not even one of the movies that I can take so much from it that it's just a fun watch. It's just kind of just
It
boring.
it's not fun. It's just bad. You
It's
know,
yeah.
it's not the bad. It's not fun bad. It's just bad. But in typical Severance style, you can get a couple of bundles here. The Friend of Trumpy bundle, where you can get
Ooh,
a T-shirt and a Trumpy stuffed animal, or a Trumpy plushie, as they
plush,
call them.
plush. Yeah.
Um, and then there's the Good News Bad News bundle, where you get um you get all three of the releases because there's one release here that I believe is a TV related release that we don't really talk about. It's called what's it called? Comic Strip. Yeah, it's called The Complete Comic Strip Presents Channel 4 Films. and it's I think it's a comic. It's it's like a TV show type of deal, but you can get all 3 of those in this bundle, and then there's the Laugh in the Face of Fear bundle where you basically get everything. You get
Yeah.
all 3 releases, you get the plushie, you get, the T-shirt, you get it all. Um, yeah, that's Severin. I mean,
Well, I mean,
what do you think of the other film, Alien from the Abyss? Because I didn't get to see that one.
that one's actually kind of fun.
Okay.
It's very, very low budget, very kind of really cheap effects. But it is what it's fun about it is it's essentially a alien ripoff movie. So this is ripoff month apparently. You know, and in this one, you do get at least one recognizable actor in Alien from the Abyss, or I think what was it also called? It was like Alien of the Deep or from the
Alien
Deep.
from the Deep, but I think
Um,
Alien from the Abyss is a straight reference to James Cameron.
yeah,
Aliens, really, and then the
Alien.
Abyss,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So, but I'm trying to think. What was I? We talked about this before. What was
Charles
the
Napier.
Charles Napier? He plays the bad guy in the movie. So you got one recognizable actor really in the movie, and then the rest of them are kind of no names. And then you get this big Dick Crab, as I call him.
I like how you paused there. Good pause.
So yeah, you get a Dick Crab in the movie that is in the abyss, and
It
yeah,
but you kinda buried the lead in this. It's one of the final films of Antonio Margheriti,
yeah.
who, if you've been following this, show, or if you've just been following releases in general, Antonio Margheriti, a bunch of his films have been getting releases from Arrow. Arrow's put out a bunch of his stuff recently. He's an Italian film director and whatnot. But this is one of his later films. I'm guessing not one of his better films. Um,
I don't care. This is maybe not right now, but later when there's a sale, maybe or something, maybe I'll grab this one because it's kind of fun, and I like Alien and aliens, and I like that it's kind of the monster. We know that there's a lot of phallic imagery in the alien films, and so they literally just go straight for the dick. It's a dick crab.
yeah.
So I think that's fun, and it's got a little bit of like Jaws too. It's like there's a big lead up to finally having this monster in the movie. So yeah, it's got some value. I think it's kind of fun.
Cool.
It's got a new 4K restoration, and a few features on it. Not too stacked, but yeah. That's Severin's release slate. So
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah, that's Severin Slate, which is small, but it's in that same Severin vibe. You know what I
it's a
mean? Like
Severin vibe, and like I said, it's a rip off month. It looks like it's just
oh
movies that have
gee.
ripped off other movies.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, have it all movies kind of ripped off other movies, really.
Shut up.
I mean, for the most part. I'm
Not
trying to. I'm trying to figure out a couple of the Antonio Margheriti stuff that Arrow's put out. Um, yeah, Arrow's put out quite a few of his stuff. I can't like list them all right now because it would take way too long to get into all of that. And but you should, people should check out his work.
all right.
Okay,
Well,
so
let's move to our
move
last
on.
slate. Last
We've
slate
got
here.
no, we've got two actually. Um,
Two. What else am I forgetting?
uh,
I
we've
got
got
Radiance here.
Radiance and Umbrella.
Well, if you want to call Umbrellas a slate, but okay.
Well,
All
it's
right.
two movies. I mean,
They're
Severin was
both
just two movies, but let's go to Radiance. Because Radiance has got one film that we've talked about before, The Iron Prefect. This was
yeah.
announced several months ago, but this is their July releases. Actually, damn, we're in July releases territory already. So this is their July stuff. The Iron Prefect and OC and Stigs and Thieves Like Us, which is I'm gonna get into that, and then they are releasing a standard edition in May of Welcome to the Dollhouse. You can still find the limited editions out there from like Diabolic and other places, maybe, but they are getting slim. This sold out very very fast, and then something that's also getting a standard edition is Big Time Gambling Boss, which was one of the early releases that's gone. already, and that's pretty much those 2 releases, I think, gone from their warehouse, so whatever limited editions exist are out there to be had.
Yeah.
Um, but Thieves Like Us and OC and the Stigs are both Robert Altman films. That's what's interesting about those 2 releases.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that that's gonna make these bigger sellers, faster sellers than we probably will expect.
yeah, and they're both
So
Region B locked, because I know for a fact Thieves Like Us has a Kino release that's been out since, like, 2014 here. I know because it's been in my Amazon to buy later cart forever. And now I guess I have this one to watch to buy if I want it. Um, it's it, yeah, and then OC and the Stigs is another Altman film, but it's an interesting Altman film because it's kind of like Altman doing National Lampoons. Like in that vein, like him doing like an 80s like teenage comedy movie. And that's not what I expected from Robert Altman, so it was
yeah,
surprising while I was watching it. Um, and OC and Stiggs are a pair of sharp teens who carry out a vendetta against middle-class neighbor Mr. Schwab, um, as yeah, as his insurance company has canceled OC's grandfather's retirement policy. And this is directly from the characters from the National Lampoon's magazine. And basically, these 2 kids just kind of like perform pranks on these neighbors' family that they hate.
yeah,
That's kind of the movie. And they get into all kind of those antics and they're kind of teenage delinquents, but they're also kind of just completely bored with their lives. They're kind of like middle class, like I just don't care about life and about things and whatnot. Which is an interesting kind of commentary on kind of 1980s youth culture and whatnot. Um, Interesting kind of cameos by some actors who people may see, like Dennis Hopper shows up as a Vietnam War veteran that kind of is has a bit of a PSD situation going on, PTSD situation going on. Melvin Van Peebles pops up in this movie. John Cryer plays like a son of of this family that they're going after. And it's right before he was in what was he in Pretty in Pink? Or was it 16
mm.
Candles? Or was it both actually?
It could be
Um,
both.
it could be both. I mean, at that time, I mean, that's that's kind of people were in those teenage comedies and whatnot. He was in Pretty in Pink.
Okay.
And of all the actors, I guess the young actors come out to be in this movie, he's the one that kind of rose to the most fame. It's interesting that the 2 people who were OC and Stiggs were 2 actors I did not recognize really at all. Um, that's kind of interesting to me, but yeah, it's fine film. Thieves Like Us is markedly different. Thieves Like Us feels more like a Robert Altman film from the 70s. It's got that vibe, that aesthetic. It's got that feeling of a Robert Altman film. And it's interesting because it's kind of laid back, and I was expecting something with a little more, I don't know, a little more oomph in it, but it doesn't quite have it. It stars Keith Carradine of the famous Carradine family. Um, uh, Shelley Duvall is in the film as well, and the premise of this film is that I think that these 3 men break out of prison, and they basically start their crimes again. They start robbing banks all throughout the South, I think, and they end up like kind of going on the run from the law and whatnot. Keith Carradine ends up meeting Shelley Duvall's character. They end up falling in love and having a romance, and it's kind of about that, but it's also kind of about Keith Carradine. He doesn't really want to be in the crime life anymore, but there's one last deal he's got to pull off. They kind of force him to do it. And of course, it doesn't really go the way you expect it to go. And then things kind of go downhill from there. Um, yeah, it's Robert Altman. He was an absolute legend. So, like Steven said, I think these are going to sell extremely well. I
Yeah, I
know I'll
think
probably end up getting Thieves Like Us, and My OCD is gonna make me get OC in Stigs because I want to get all the Radiance releases, and yeah, I don't see myself
He'll
rewatching.
wait till it sells out on the site and then go running for it. So,
It's one, and not only that, I want to get all the Robert Altman films too, so I can't have this hole missing in my Robert Altman collection. Come on, I mean, if I have Popeye, I gotta get
well,
this.
you might as well get that. Yeah.
Ironically, I think this is the movie he did after Popeye, maybe. Uh, so it's interesting, kind of where Robert Altman's career kind of went, because Popeye was kind of his most commercial movie that he really ever did, and then when it was a huge flop, I guess he just went back to doing um what he normally did. No, it's not the movie he did right after. It's the movie he did several years after. He did come back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. I need to get that on Blu-ray. I know there's a Blu-ray that has that, that is available, that I really want to get. And the movie Secret Honor starring the late Philip Baker Hall is incredible. There's only a DVD put out by the Criterion Collection of that, and that needs a Blu-ray release put out by them or put out by somebody, because it's a great film where it's just Philip Baker Hall as Richard Nixon losing his mind the whole time in the White House talking to himself. It's a fictionalized version of Richard Nixon, but Nixon was a crazy person anyway. And it's just him like having a downward just panic attack, dealing with the whole Watergate crisis and political stuff that was going on with him. Great film, great film. So, the Iron Prefect we've talked about before, I believe, when it was announced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, that's actually a really solid buy. It's based on a true story. Um, it's kind of and they're kind of describing it as like it's an Untouchables but set in Sicily, which is a really good way to approach it. Whereas there's this guy who essentially gets hired to go to Sicily to put an end to the mafia's hijinks there, if you will, and he's just got to be like a hard lawman to do it, and they get like the hardest, most badass guy to try to do it. It's a period piece. Yeah, it's a pretty solid movie. I remember really liking it when it came out. So I'm full in when it comes to Radiance. I mean, we talk about, passion and just or putting a maximum effort into their releases. Radiance is doing that all the time. I'm
Yeah.
not. I haven't been unhappy with any of the stuff that they put out so far.
Yep. It's looking good so far. So keep an eye on Radiance. And so now we're moving on to our last little couple releases here, and that is from Umbrella Entertainment.
Their June stuff.
Their June stuff, and we got some more. We got I guess you could say 2 horror releases here. One is more of a schlocky slasher type, and that is Houseboat Horror from 1989. Good year. And of course, with how Umbrella does their releases, their pre-orders, they have the very deluxe kind of collector's edition that they start out with that has all the bells and whistles, posters, and art cards and things. And then they'll have a more standard edition that still has a slipcase. But the other film, and one that I think me and Andrew both really love, is 2003 film Tale of Two Sisters. And that, of course, this is directed by King Jin. Is it King Jin Woon, who did A Bittersweet Life and I Saw the Devil. So yeah, and this previously had an Arrow release a couple years ago, which was a really good release. But this release does have a new 4K restoration on it and a new color grade by the director. So and I'm sure there's some differences in features, but yeah, love this film. Andrew, Tale of Two Sisters.
Yeah, this is a great film. I don't know what it is with 2000s Korean horror films, but they were just on another
They were killing
level.
it. They were killing
I mean, just visceral, deep cutting, horrific in different ways. You know what I mean? Like not horrific in like ooh, I'm scared ways, but different in like just getting underneath your skin and making you feel incredibly
the one?
uncomfortable.
Yeah, what's the one that just came out from Criterion. Was it Cure? Isn't that right? Right,
Yes.
Korean.
I think
Yeah.
that was earlier though. I think that was like 97.
Okay.
If yeah, Cure was 1997,
Okay.
and that was Kiyoshi Kurosawa. But I'm thinking like Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. That
Yeah.
was, I think, 2003, coincidentally, same year. And of course, you have the Vengeance trilogy, where it's Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, and then Lady Vengeance,
Yeah.
that's Park Chan-wook. And then you've got, of course, I Saw the Devil, which is a viscerally
That
horrific film.
movie
And you have
is
like
rough.
Audition, Ichi the Killer. I mean, the list goes on and on. That's when you also got like I think the Grudge films and Ringu and all those films too were popping up back then. Yeah, then this film is more of a
Them were Japanese.
psychological,
They were Japanese though.
right? But I'm just talking about
And,
okay. I would say then East Asian kind of
sure,
the
sure,
market
sure, sure.
was really putting out some fantastic horror films in that era. Um, but this film feels more like a drama dealing with trauma. I know that just rhymed.
Yeah, a drama dealing with trauma. Yeah,
And yeah, I almost don't want to explain what the plot of this movie is to people because I don't want to spoil any part of it. It's a movie dealing with like a traumatic event and the psychological complications that ensue because of it, and it makes you go through things that may or may not be real. You know what I mean? You may create scenarios around you may or may not be real as a result of that. And it does a really good film of making you believe things are real when they in fact are not. Um, yeah, it's really solid film, really great film. I can't recommend it enough. Yeah, check it
yeah.
anyway. Watch it any way you can. Um, I can't remember if it's streaming anywhere.
I
I
didn't look because I own it, but yeah,
Oh, you own it. You
yeah, I got the
slide.
tail. I told you I got the Arrow release,
Oh yeah, you do have the hour release.
and I wouldn't be against buying this release because of the upgrade on the visuals. I'd have to look at the features, um, Arrow release is great. It's I remember when we talked about it on the show, we looked at the features and we are like, God, this is just one movie and it's got a wealth of features on it. Um,
Okay. Yeah, I do
yeah,
remember that. Yeah, so
yeah,
it is streaming through Canopy, which is available through your local library, but not everyone's local library, which is
yeah.
incredibly annoying.
Kind of annoying. Yeah,
'Cause I know Steven's
it
library
doesn't.
doesn't, but mine
No,
does.
yeah,
I guess it all depends
asshole.
on which
Yeah,
system you're in. I have
yeah.
no idea how any of that works.
It's
Uh,
probably a local government thing.
that's my guess. That's my guess.
Some can afford it, some don't care. Some,
That's also true. Now, when did I'm gonna look it up? The Tale of Two Sisters Arrow release came out.
I think it's 2021.
Okay, so that's super recent.
Yeah,
Yeah, 2021 is when this came out. So yeah, we must have covered it at the time.
yeah. I remember us talking about it, and yeah, it's good. It's good,
Yeah, I'm
guys. So
curious. Yeah, that was a 2-disc release with tons of features. Wow. Yeah, we were right. You were right. I'm wondering what this release is like when it comes to comparing um features. I wonder if it's going to have like a similar type of list or if it's pretty extensive. I'm just looking at it now, doing a quick thing. It's got the audio commentaries and it's got a bunch of features itself. I mean, I think you really buy this release or either release for the movie itself first and foremost, regardless of what edition you get.
yeah, yeah. And this, like I said, this new release has got a new restoration, so might be the one to go after if you haven't gotten it yet. And Umbrella stuff is a lot of times region free. So you probably shouldn't have an issue playing this in a region A player. So yeah, the other film is Houseboat Horrors. I almost watched this movie until I realized that somebody had it was obviously a rip from like a VHS or something, and then it was on top of that somebody was translating the English into into like French over top of the video, and I'm like, I can't do this.
And that was on YouTube, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I was like, I don't think I'll be able to watch this one. So unfortunately, didn't get a chance to watch this one. But it does look like one of them kind of very schlocky, slasher horror films from that time. Of course, the 80s was big into the slasher films. This release has got
Yeah, it got
tons
people
of features.
buzzing.
Yeah,
It also got people buzzing because they never thought this movie would get a Blu-ray release.
yeah.
Uh, a rowdy rock group are accompanied by a film crew to Desolate Lake Infinity to produce a music video. One night, the musicians visit the local pub while the various members of the film crew satisfy their carnal desires with one another aboard the luxurious houseboat they are all staying in. They are so busy they fail to notice that a rampaging lunatic has snuck aboard the boat, and one by one, the various characters are brutally slaughtered in a variety of grisly ways. Oh man, if there's one thing you gotta know about slasher films, you can't. You gotta bury those carnal desires. You just can't let
Yeah.
it out, or
No,
else the murderers come and kill you. You
of
know,
course.
it's 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 so anti-sex. It's so anti-sex.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, this is an Australian film, straight to video. So and it apparently has stars, at the time, who's who of 80s Australian actors. So Alan Dale, Christine Jeston, Gavin Wood. Sorry.
Yeah, Gavin Hood's
Yeah, tons.
the director.
Yeah, it is that he is the director. He is the director. But yeah, this has a pretty good amount of features here. And like I said, if you get the pre-order, you get a lot of goodies with it. So yeah, this might be. I'm sure cult fans are going to be into this. It does say that this is kind of it just kind of described this as one of them like bad movies. Like before Tommy Wiseau entered the room and James Nugnan took flight in Birdemic, Ollie Martin welcomed audiences aboard Houseboat Horrors. So
That's a
the way
growing
that's
endorsement.
the way
If
that's
you're putting the
described,
movie in that category, you know what
yeah,
you're getting yourself into.
yeah. So
But to be honest, a lot of the 80s slashers that we cover are very much in that vein. The acting's not good, the plot's not good. You're kind of just watching it just to see like what type of cool murders they're gonna do, I guess.
yeah, it hits a certain sweet spot. But
Yeah, there are people who do like the 80s slashers and whatnot. But that is seemingly it for Umbrella, and I think that's it for everything for this week.
yes, that is it for this week. Thanks again, of course, to Chris McKay for joining us to talk about his new film Renfield coming out this coming up Friday, the 14th of April. So I'll be excited to hopefully check that out soon. And yeah, with that said, Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06. I'm still on Twitter as the Titanic is sinking. I guess I'm there. Who knows? And then you can also find me on our YouTube channel where you can find all of the interviews that we do with a bunch of great guests, including Chris McKay. That'll be up on there very very soon. Chasing Labels is the name of it.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings, or at the other Chasing Labels stuff, whether it be our Twitter, Instagram, or you can even find me over at my letterbox at Stephen Billings. You can also find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.